Let us pray. Heavenly Father, we thank you for the privilege of being able to come to you in prayer. And as we reflect back to September 11th, 2001, we thank you for the town that you've given us and for the leaders as we move forward to make it even better. Now we just give you this time and give you all the energy so that it's all up to you. In your holy and blessed name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Gary. Thank you, Chaplain. Mr. Pagliarini, are we compliant with the Freedom of Information Act?
Yes.
Item number 4 is approval of the agenda.
So moved. Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any changes, additions, conversations, questions? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? And the ayes have it. We have several public hearings this evening. Well, we have 2 public hearings, and we have several proclamations and community issues. Christiane?
Good evening.
Good evening.
We actually have 2 public hearings tonight. The first public hearing we have is a hearing to receive input regarding a proposal to amend the Town of Mount Pleasant Code of Ordinances. This is Chapter 155, the Land Development Regulations, as follows. This is by adding definitions to Section 155004, modifying the submittal process for sketch plans as described in 155021 and 022, modifying the submittal process for preliminary plat as described in 155023, modifications to 155, 024, 25, 26, 27 concerning final plat submittals, and then finally other modifications in the following sections: 155, 005, 020, 028, 029, 044, 48, 49, 50, 51, 52, 53, 72, 73, 86, and 999. This also includes the Appendix A and Appendix B, and there are other modifications as needed for consistency with the aforementioned amendments. You do have an item later on your agenda with respect to this public.
Thank you very much. I do have someone signed up to speak. Mr. Brock? If you'll come forward, state your name and address for the record, we'll give you 2 minutes to address the council. Welcome.
Good evening, I'm Stephen Brock, 34 Hooktown Road, Mount Pleasant. These pending amendments to the Mount Pleasant zoning code were not processed by the lawful requirements of the Mount Pleasant zoning code, specifically section 156031, which requires that all amendments require a public hearing before the planning commission. Council may hold its own public hearing certainly on any point, but in addition to, not in lieu of, the hearing for the planning commission. These amendments went to the commission at a special meeting at 3 p.m. on a weekday, and few can attend, 2 hours before a regular commission meeting. In my recently settled FOIA case, the trial court found this practice not in the spirit of FOIA, and so do I. I also wonder who made the decisions and when to make this change. In my experience, public comment at a commission public hearing often affected the recommendations of the commission, providing information unknown to the commission and new viewpoints. The statutory commission recommendations that followed allowed time for study and review. The recommendation you have was not the product of appropriate participation and public input. And the evaluation of public participation is one result. These amendments further weaken the planning commission standards. Just a few notes. The preliminary plat approval was taken from the commission, placed under the planning department, which, if I read it correctly, makes it a vested right without a public process. Decisions of the planning director may now be made in many instances by a designated representative. That's in quotes. Who is that? Why is that? Certainly the ordinance can specify and alter the points necessary in an emergency situation. Then there's also that generality of staff found in the amendments. Recall the so-called statement by the town on the Shem Creek Garage referred to decisions by staff. Specific accountability is necessary in all public business, in my view, and particularly in development, because it touches all of our lives. We need more, not less. We also need more disclosure and public process, not less. And we surely need adherence to the laws of the town. I only ask that you send this non-critical amendment back to the planning commission for a public hearing and an informed recommendation by that body in keeping with its importance and its statutory position.
Thank you, Mr. Brock. Is there anyone else signed up to speak on this issue? Is there anyone else in this body that would like to speak on this issue tonight? Any questions or comments from the council? This public hearing is closed. Yes, ma'am, we're moving
The
on.
second public hearing that we have is a public hearing to receive input regarding the proposal to adopt a new development agreement for proposed development to be known as Palmetto Fort. The development is proposed to consist of detached single-family residential uses, attached single-family residential uses, open space areas, a trail system, and a community farm and other neighborhood amenity uses. The property comprising the proposed development is approximately 209 acres, consists of two parcels of land described as 207 acres, parcel located on North Palmetto Fort Drive and North Lakeshore Drive, tax map number 577000001. As further described on your agenda, is located on plat book page Q, book Q, page 155. And then also approximately 1.99 acre tract of land located on Rifle Range near the intersection of Carrington Lane, which is tax map number 57700000315, depicted as Lot A on the plat recorded in plat book L16, page 0210. This is the first required public hearing for this development agreement. You are required to hold two. The second public hearing is scheduled for Tuesday, October 11th. That is your next town council meeting. That will be held here at Town Hall in council chambers.
Thank you very much, Ms. Farrell. We have two people signed up to speak on this. I'll first call up Mr. Mike Mitchum.
We cannot hear from the podium microphone. Could that be adjusted?
Absolutely. Mike Mitchum, please step forward, state your name and address, and we'll give you 2 minutes to address the council.
Good evening. My name is Mike Mitchum. I live at 1476 McManus Road. Surprisingly, development literally rests right next to my property, so 2 things will happen. When I wake up in the future, I'll hear construction and I'll see houses in my front yard. Naturally, when I went to the first meeting, I was already having this thing against the developer. Not a good guy. But this was taken aback for me when he personally walked up to me and asked me questions like, what can I do for you? How can my neighborhood benefit you? He took it even a little bit further. He said, what can my neighborhood do to support 6 Mile community? How can I let 6 Mile keep their identity? This really humbled me because it's the first time I've talked to a developer versus his lawyer. See, not only did he listen to me, he even asked the community, hey, give me some ideas of what I can do. They even went a step further and say, hey, let them help name the community. And the people that gave that idea are sitting in the seats right there. He's creating public trails, which is a lot better than I thought they would be, because he's not even forming the HOA. They will be public, so no one's discriminated. And we, as citizens of Mount Pleasant, get to finally experience the Low Country how we're supposed to, free and not worried about who's going to keep us in there and kick us out. The sad thing is, we live in a town that constantly is growing. But Mount Pleasant is always producing the same products. We're producing the same neighborhoods, we're producing the same traffic, we're producing the same issues that makes me stand up here, and this is the first time I've been for a developer versus against a developer. This man is creating the first ever agricultural neighborhood. Can we say that's the first time Mount Pleasant would be the first city in the whole state of South Carolina to actually do that? That's history itself. He's trying to make it where he doesn't affect us. Better yet, we can benefit from him. We voted y'all in. That's what our jobs are, to vote y'all in, to hear my concern, to hear every citizen's concern, and make your best judgment based on that. From a citizen sitting here whose property literally goes right next to his, I'm telling you that this is the best guy I could have develop this land, because he's the best guy that will listen to your concerns.
Thank you, Mr.
Yes.
Mitchum. That's your 2 minutes, yes, sir. But thank you for speaking this evening. We also have Claudia Mazik. Ms. Mazik, it's your turn at the mic. Welcome to the council.
Thank you.
You're very welcome.
Claudia Mazik, 1285 6 Mile Road. We have no problem with the development either, but the only thing that we are opposed to is the right turn lane from 6 Mile Road to Rifle Range Road. That's the only thing that we're opposed to. And I'm a member of Cage and a member of 6 Mile Community. Thank you.
Well, thank you for your service to the community, and thank you for speaking before us this evening. Is there anyone else here that would like to address this public hearing? Welcome to the mic. Please state your name and address. We'll give you 2 minutes.
Thanks for working me in. My name is Tim Hinkie. I live at 1512 West Palmetto Fort Drive, and I'm here because a few meetings ago, members of my community presented a letter in opposition of this development, just on principle for changing the way our current neighborhood lives. Since then, at the recommendation of the council, we've met with Mr. Hoyer several times and submitted a list of our thoughts and ideas to him about how to ease the impact upon our neighborhood. And again, he's been very receptive and is working with us. We have a rough list together of ideas that he is working through, and we seem to have a great working relationship. And I'm pretty confident we'll come to an agreement that everyone that sort of lives in our neighborhood is willing to accept. That's about it.
Thank you very much. Anyone else? Yes, sir.
My name's Joe Morgan. I live at 1523 North Lake Shore. Second what Mr. Hinkie said. Mr. Hoyer and his team have met with us on all of our concerns and is very willing to work with us. You can't hardly ask for much more. So we were in opposition, but now after meeting and talking with the developer and his team, we're lucky to be able to work with him. So just wanted to express my thoughts.
Well, thank you for addressing the council this evening. Anyone else? Does council, yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Gloria Walker, 2155 Rifleman Road. Although I don't see it on this plan, but I have an understanding that they're going to put a right-hand lane turn on Rifleman Road, turns into 6 miles, except at light. And I am against that. I agree with Claudia, and that I am against having that right turn lane. Okay, I'm getting scared now.
Don't get scared. You're among friends and family.
Like I said, it is a right-hand turn lane, a right lane that we are against in our neighborhoods. We don't need it. We need for it. I thank you.
Well, thank you for participating in our meeting this evening. Anyone else before I open it to council? Does council have any questions, comments for this public hearing? Anything for the record? With no further ado, this public hearing is closed. Thank you, Ms. Farrell. Mr. DeMore, I think you're up next.
I believe so. We have a video we'd like to show you. It's part of our award this year from the Municipal Association for Communications. And here it is.
Communications category, the town of Mount Pleasant. Mount Pleasant is one of the fastest growing cities in America. To make sure all residents, both newcomers and long-term, have a voice in the town's future, local leaders knew they had to find ways to engage people and hear their diverse perspectives. Town leaders started looking at how they could get out of City Hall to meet residents in their neighborhoods. They asked members of the public, through surveys and other input, how they wanted to engage with town leaders. People clearly wanted a voice in how the town is run, and town leaders listened.
And they came up with programs that got them out into the community to meet with different groups of people in different geographic areas at different times of the day. So they're reaching out, and the community is realizing that they care and they want to hear from them. And just the fact that you're being heard makes a difference.
This community input led officials to create the Government Outreach Office dedicated to civic engagement.
The Government Outreach Office came to be because we understood that there was a need for government to get in the community. So we batted around a couple of ideas. I mean, we even talked about having an RV. But we really wanted to get into the neighborhoods and the coffee shops, into people's lives.
The Government Outreach Office developed 4 innovative but low-cost programs to get people involved. First is Coffee with the Mayor.
So we have a Coffee with the Mayor, and I do that once a month at a different restaurant. And those are open to anyone who wants to attend. There's no agenda, there's no list of questions, so citizens come and talk about whatever they want to talk about.
Second, the town administrator holds mobile office hours at different locations in the community. Third is roundtable meetings with community organizations, civic groups, and neighborhood associations.
We've had the community roundtable with the town of Mount Pleasant. That was in February, and we discussed some major issues that were going on in the community, and had very good feedback from the town about outcomes and things that can be implemented to satisfy what was going on in our community at the time. So it's a win-win opportunity.
Fourth is the town administrator's monthly e-brief. The electronic newsletter is filled with important information about local issues and city services.
Oh, we get such great feedback on our community outreach. I've met a lot of great people who come to every Coffee with the Mayor. They don't miss one. And it's not for the donuts or the muffins, but I think they truly enjoy having the ear of an elected official. We have made government very open and transparent, and I always joke, I say if you don't have the mayor's cell phone number, you're out of the loop. But it's really being that connected. And it's not just me, it's our council and our staff. So we are open and accessible for the people who live here. We want to listen to their solutions.
In Mount Pleasant, officials have found their targeted efforts are making a difference in their relationships with the public.
And we have with us this evening from the Municipal Association of South Carolina, Mr. Bill Taylor. And Bill, actually the award is over here. Would you like to say a few words first?
Yes, I would, actually, and I'm very pleased to be here tonight to join Mayor and Council and the citizens as we present this Municipal Achievement Award. We presented this award to the Mayor and the town back in July when we had our annual meeting in Charleston. And Mayor Page was able to accept it on behalf of the staff and the town council. But we wanted to share this accomplishment with everyone here, other people who were not able to attend, and the citizens. As mentioned in the video, the town won this in the communications category. We had almost 30 other cities across the state submit their own applications and initiatives for consideration for this award. One of the things that purposes of our annual awards program is really to share these great ideas with other cities across the state. These are ideas, simple ideas that can be replicated across the state in other cities and towns. And that's just what people saw when we had over 300 elected officials at our annual awards breakfast that Saturday morning. And I know Mayor Page was proud to accept it on behalf of the council and the town at that time, but we wanted to extend another and represent it back to the whole council at this time. So again, we want to congratulate the town of Mount Pleasant for all your hard work and for winning this achievement award for 2016.
Thank you. It's not mine, it's ours. There we go. There you go, Bill, come on.
Okay, I'll get it there.
It's happy to.
I only get to keep it for a year, you realize that.
We had it last year too, Bill.
But that big building coming up next door might qualify for another one.
Okay, good.
And 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
You're Gary.
Give it to Gary. Gary Holden.
Gary Holden.
Doesn't have anything in it. Put her on the wall. Representing our police department, Don Calabrese, would you come forward, helping us to recognize Domestic Violence Awareness Month?
Thank you. Hey, I'm Don Calabrese. I'm one of the patrol officers here at the Mount Pleasant Police Department, and the reason I'm here is we've been working with our victims advocates on some team goals this year. Each year we submit them to the chief of police, and one of ours is on the topic of domestic violence. So we've been doing some education, prevention, and awareness, and that's why we're here tonight. So we can have our victims advocates, Donna, Ruth, and Monica step up along with the rest of my team, Team 1.
Okay, I'll go ahead and read the proclamation. Whereas domestic violence can happen to anyone of any race, age, ability, religion, nationality, or gender. It crosses all socioeconomic boundaries. And whereas children who witness domestic violence often grow up believing that physical cruelty in relationships is acceptable behavior, and thus they tend to perpetuate a cycle of violence in society. And whereas to raise awareness about domestic violence prevention, the town of Mount Pleasant is participating in the National Domestic Violence Awareness Month. And whereas we call on all citizens of Mount Pleasant to speak out against domestic violence and support local efforts to assist victims of these crimes in finding the help and healing they need. We urge all citizens to work together to eliminate domestic violence from our community. Whereas we can promote healthy relationships by speaking out when we see injustice in our community, stand with survivors, and change attitudes that lead to the cycle of abuse. And whereas we must ensure that survivors of domestic violence know that they are not alone and that there are resources available to them. And whereas we encourage victims, their loved ones, and concerned citizens to learn more about domestic violence by calling the National Domestic Violence Hotline at 1-800-799-SAFE. And whereas we must continue to hold domestic abusers accountable, punish them to the full extent of the law, and prevent them from inflicting more abuse. Now therefore I, Linda Page, Mayor of the town of Mount Pleasant, do hereby proclaim October 2016 as Domestic Violence Awareness Month. Next, I'd like to invite up to help us recognize Childhood Cancer Awareness Month, Liz Potter and Todd and Brandy Richardson with the Ethan Richardson Foundation. Please come forward, as well as Margaret Marco, Chase After the Cure. Proclamation. Whereas each and every day, 46 children in the United States are diagnosed with cancer, and 1 out of each 5 of those diagnosed will not survive. And whereas cancer is the leading cause of death by a disease among U.S. children between infancy and age 15. And whereas when a child is diagnosed with cancer, it devastates their entire family, and the unexpected cost of treatment can be overwhelming. And whereas when a child battles cancer, it has a profound impact on loved ones, friends, neighbors, classmates, and the entire community. And whereas the determination and bravery with which these children fight their battles against cancer should be recognized and commended by all. And whereas September has been set aside as Childhood Cancer Awareness Month to increase knowledge, awareness, and support. And now therefore I, Linda Page, Mayor of the Town of Mount Pleasant, do hereby proclaim September 2016 as Childhood Cancer Awareness Month.
Good evening. I'm Margaret Marco, Director of Marketing for Chase After a Cure. Thanks so much for having me here today. By proclaiming September as Childhood Cancer Awareness Month, you are shining a light on a disease which has touched the lives of so many. Childhood cancer is the #1 cause of death by disease among children. It is also a disease that is severely underfunded. Less than 4% of federal cancer research funding goes to childhood cancer. The remaining 96% goes to adult cancers. This cannot continue. Our children are worth more than that. Please help us elevate the conversation about childhood cancer and continue to provide funding to the only childhood cancer research lab in South Carolina here at MUSC. Visit www.chaseafteracure.com to learn more about our organization and how you can join the fight. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Todd Richardson. I'm with the Ethan Richardson Foundation. This is my wife, Brandy. I wasn't prepared to speak tonight, and I never thought I'd be standing in front of a group of people talking about childhood cancer, but we lost our son, and I just want to thank this community for everything that you've done for us. And visit ethanrichardson.org as we try to continue the giving legacy of our son. Thank you.
I want to get one more picture. Everybody in? Yeah.
Mayor Page, council members, ladies and gentlemen, Amy Livingston, who's our Business Development Officer, will lead us in Business Appreciation Month. Amy?
Thank you. I think I'm a little shorter. I don't think we could celebrate Business Appreciation Week without inviting up Chris Stobbs, who's the president of Mount Pleasant Business Association. Would you come up? Thank you so much for what you do for our community. First, we have a proclamation we'd like to read. Whereas the town of Mount Pleasant is a business-friendly community that would like to show appreciation to the individuals that do business here and contribute to the growth and economic health of our community, and whereas the local economy of Mount Pleasant is stimulated by businesses that create jobs and employment opportunities, allowing citizens to earn money, support their families, and thus reinvest in the community, and whereas the town of Mount Pleasant supports the entrepreneurial spirit by being a community that not only welcomes new businesses, but supports them by providing resources and offering assistance through the startup process. And whereas the town strives to build and strengthen relationships amongst local entrepreneurs and business owners and creates a supportive, open, and encouraging business environment that is inviting and attractive. And whereas the town of Mount Pleasant wishes to showcase and recognize the success of businesses within the community, now, therefore, I, Linda Page, Mayor of the town of Mount Pleasant, proclaim September 19th through 23rd, 2016 as Business Appreciation Week in the town of Mount Pleasant, with a goal of providing a fresh and ever-evolving atmosphere to remain a competitive, interesting, and desirable destination in which to do business. Chris, would you like to say a few words?
Madam Mayor, members of Town Council, thank you for having me here today. Make sure everyone can hear me. Walking up here and actually sitting in the audience and hearing about the families that are affected in this community, it really does hit home for me. That's one of the things I really like about this organization. We have the Mount Pleasant Business Association. This is your business association. This is the town of Mount Pleasant. This is an organization that's there to serve our businesses, our community, our workforce, and our people. And the things that are going on in this community are just wonderful, and I'm glad we had an opportunity to help here. I was looking at our statement earlier. It's basically we have a foundation of integrity, social responsibility, and excellence, and I think that pairs up very nicely with everything the town of Mount Pleasant's doing. Thank you.
So, in keeping with Business Appreciation Week, I would like to recognize our inaugural Town Anchors. What are Town Anchors? Town Anchors is a community-driven annual business award program highlighting the 9 businesses that are an integral part of our community. I would be remiss to talk about the businesses if we didn't say something about the awesome, special people that run them and make them up. So we can't forget that. This year, the town partnered with the Mount Pleasant Business Association and the Moultrie News to put on this competition. Citizens selected these winners, and we couldn't have agreed any more. Make sure to follow along with us on Facebook starting tomorrow as we share mayor and the council's fond memories of each of these businesses, and we encourage you to also share yours. As I call your business name to come up here, we would love to get your picture. Feel free to come forward, receive your plaque, and we ask that you stay for a large group picture. All right. All right, Pitt Street Pharmacy. Mount Pleasant Seafood. Agent-owned realty. Loy Harn Jewelry. Advanced Hearing Care. Seaman Whiteside. Royal Ace Hardware. Mount Pleasant Animal Hospital. And Atkinson Pools and Spas. Thank you so much for being an integral part of the community. Yeah. All right. Thanks, Mark.
Y'all come on the front. Y'all go right down the front.
Congrats.
Thank you.
Mayor Page, council members, ladies and gentlemen, Public Services Director Jody Peel and Police Chief Carl Ritchie will recognize some special employees for us. Jody?
Kathy Hutchinson, please come forward.
All around loud.
She's coming.
Hey, Kathy.
It's my pleasure to recognize Kathy Hutchinson for 20 years of service. Kathy began her employment with the town in 1996. Her early evaluation showed that she was a very hard worker, capable of accomplishing any task, was able to handle responsibilities outside her normal duties. In 1999, she was promoted to a crew leader within the Facilities and Grounds Division and earned a supervisor certificate from the Trident Technical College in 2000. In 2010, Kathy was assigned to the Senior Center and quickly excelled in her new position. She has become a key member of the family at the Senior Center, helping to make it a great facility that it is. She takes great pride in her work, and it shows when you look at the care she gives to the facility and its members. She always puts forth maximum effort and takes great pride in her facility. Over the years, we have received many compliments about Kathy. One member at the Senior Center went so far as to say that the highlight of her day is seeing Kathy's sweet smile when she goes to the center. Kathy has tremendous work ethic and is dependable and motivated. She is one of the many employees that make this town a special place. Kathy, congratulations for 20 years of service.
Kathy, I think there's some more ladies that want to see you over there too.
That's good.
That's exactly why I waited. I wasn't stealing that spot. Lieutenant Pat Carter, I'm not sure how you're going to follow it up, but please come on. Folks, I've actually got the honor tonight of recognizing 3 long-time employees. I'm going to start first with Lieutenant Pat Carter, who has been with the town now 20 years. Pat started, like most of our folks here, in the patrol division, quickly finding his niche in traffic. He loves traffic enforcement, especially getting DUIs off the road. Pat has been recognized throughout the state and nation for his efforts in traffic enforcement, traffic safety, seatbelt safety, and DUI enforcement. He has also started our department's honor guard, and he led 2 contingencies recently, one to Dallas, Texas, and one to Louisiana, to honor the officers who were fallen in the line of duty and represented this town and this state very well, very professionally. I appreciate that. He also started one of our Explorer posts, and we have some of our Explorers in the audience now. For those of you who don't know, it's a chance for our young people to experience police work and law enforcement and see what it's all about, and hopefully become police officers for the town. As a matter of fact, one of his first Explorers is now at the police academy going through training and will be serving this community in the very near future. So certainly appreciate all the work you've done. Pat's also a recent graduate of the Southern Police Institute, very prestigious school nationally that's recognized for police executives, and he recently graduated that. And he's currently over one of our patrol divisions and operations, and I expect you will see him standing in my place one day. I wouldn't surprise me. Pat, thank you for 20 years. I look forward to the end. Senior Sergeant Whitlock, are you here, sir? Come on up for me. Senior Sergeant Whitlock has been with the town 25 years. Again, quite an accomplishment, and just shows you the folks that want to stay with this town and work with this town and make it great. If you noticed earlier, it was his team that was up here with that project to bring awareness to domestic violence and help us curb that. That's just one of the many, many programs that Senior Sarge has led and encouraged his folks to participate in. But again, like most, he started as a patrol officer, working his way up through the ranks to where he says current position as Senior Sergeant. He has had the opportunity to work in investigations, specifically with our Juvenile Crime Bureau for when Willis first started. He's worked supply. Doesn't sound glamorous, but it's important to get the right equipment out and make sure the budget's covered. Been a crisis negotiator, and if you don't know what that is, he has been the one, and he's led a team who has gone out and talked to folks in some of their probably most distressed time, successfully getting them to turn himself in or not harm himself. And he really helped bring that team to what it is today, and as it continues to progress. He ran our training bureau for quite a while. And I can't tell you how important it is for someone of his caliber and his care for the town and the community policing that he prepares the new officers who are coming in that will accept and adopt the town's culture of being community-based policing. That's why you see this town and this police department as welcomed as it is in the state and how well we do our job. So, Senior Sergeant, I appreciate your 25 years, and I hope you stay with us a lot longer. Thank you. And last but certainly not least, Ms. Carrie Foy, will you come up for me? Ms. Foy has been with the town 30 years. And that in itself, what an incredible accomplishment. But you heard I've already recognized one for 20, one for 25, and now one for 30. You come here, just say the ones who come here to live, we come here to work, we don't want to leave. It's just a great place to be. So let me talk a little bit about Ms. Carey. She actually started with the town in 1983 in the Recreation Department. And she worked with Public Services, Planning, and Business License, which were all combined as one back then, the Mayor's Office, and was part of our very first Human Resources Office. She did leave us for a short time. In 1987, she took a job at the shipyard, but luckily for us, she didn't want to relocate when they left, so she came back to the town and started working for the police department in 1990. And she performed various jobs and titles. finally landing in our records office in 1995. And if any of you have had the opportunity or needed a report or needed some type of record or report filed, you probably saw Ms. Carey first when you come through the door. When we transitioned to the consolidated dispatch, she had to take on yet another role, because we still had to have a 24-hour operation. With dispatch gone, that fell on records. We were now going from closing the doors at 4:30 and going home to having to stay open for 24 hours now. And she became the supervisor of that unit and has done a fantastic job of keeping y'all connected with us. Because if you didn't have somebody to answer that phone for whether it's a non-emergency need or it's an emergency need, she could certainly forward you on. We couldn't have done that. Ms. Carey is probably, and her folks are the first people you see when you walk through the police department door. And I think she sets the tone for what happens for the rest of the day. So we sure appreciate what you've done with all the young people that actually work for you. I will mention here, I got a couple milestones that she gave us during her 30 years. I think it's pretty neat. She has worked for 7 mayors, 4 police chiefs, 6 computer systems, hundreds of coworkers, numerous council members, and 2 town administrators. Okay. Thank you so much.
They can't hear on cable. Eric, you know how to clear a room, man. I'm telling you.
Told him yesterday, I said. Asking to defer that development. All them people came from that hardcore state. Instead of looking like you're trying to.
Hard to be hateful.
Yeah, man. I told him that too. He's been working.
You don't have any almonds, do you?
They call me.
No. Start trying these with these.
They keep trying.
I don't know why. Musty.
I don't know, our Maryland guest must be here.
Did you hear the joke? No. Please remind me to tell you my experience at the aviation.
Oh, yeah. Remember, I told you. Worse than mine.
I don't need to say anymore. Not right now. All right, folks, if we can get settled back down, there you have it. That's why everybody wants to live here. We have the greatest community in the United States. Item number 6 is the approval of the minutes from the August 9th, 2016 Town Council meeting and the August 26th financial statement.
So moved. Second.
I have a motion, a second. Adjustments, comments, questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? And the ayes have it.
I'm sorry, who was the second on that?
Who was the second?
Either me or Mr.
Couple of this stuff. You good?
Yeah.
All right, and then item number 7 is correspondence and public statements. I have several people signed up, and I'll have Mr. Moore call you.
Gray Taylor.
Welcome, Gray. You know the routine. Name and address and 2 minutes to
Ma'am,
address us.
Gray Taylor, 652 Coleman Boulevard. Here on behalf of the developer of Palmetto Fort, now known as Liberty Hill Farms, a name that was developed in conjunction with the community. Just here in advance of our agenda items to let you know that after working with staff today and several council members, we'll be requesting that new business items 2, 3, 4, and 5 all be deferred until the October meeting. As you heard from several of our residents, we've developed a very nice working relationship with those residents. I believe we're doing the same with town council, and we hope that between now and the October meeting, we can finalize the open items. We appreciate your consideration of that request. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Taylor.
Sean Barnes. Keep smiling, Sean.
Good evening, my name is Sean Barnes. I live at 1418 Barber Street in the Indian Village, and I just want to talk a little bit about a couple of things that we've been talking about. One is the traffic calming that we're trying to get along the village, and we've been out getting people to sign up, and it looks promising, and I hope that we move forward that, slow the traffic down. Secondly, what I'd like to talk about is the subdividing of the lots that are already there. It was a pre-existing community that we have over there, and because we don't have an HOA, we always seem to get pushed around over there in the village. I know there was an overlay with the Coleman, and so with the overlay, there was some stuff that was allowed to happen of dividing of the lots. You know, there was some of the councilmen that voted for it. I want to thank you very much for trying to put a slowdown on this. And you have to excuse me, I'm reading from this. If we do some sort of subdividing, because some lots are truly double lots, but you should have about 10,000 square feet, 8,000 is. I mean, you see what's going on out there. It's ridiculous. And then also my last thing is, I grew up on Isle of Palms, and I moved over to Mount Pleasant, and I've seen through the years the taxes continue to go up and up and up, and it pushes families off. It has. It's pushed families off from Isle of Palms, Sullivan's Island, over to the last stop, which is Mount Pleasant, and I see those people leaving. And I think there should be some sort of tax relief for people that have owned their own resident or their own property, primary property, for 25 years. There needs to be something for it. Our way of life will be gone because the taxes are continuing to go up and up. You know, there was a council person that said something about the sky is falling. Well, the sky is falling. The sky is falling on what I grew up with, and the sky is falling on the people that are coming here to try to enjoy some of what we had in our youth. So if y'all would work together, I surely would appreciate it accomplished.
Thank you, Sean.
Thank you.
Bert Zidlick.
Bert Zudlick, 40 Vincent Drive, Mount Pleasant, Brook Green Meadows. First, I'd like to thank Public Service. During the tropical storm, there were 2 trees that fell in South Shim, took the electricity out, and in less than 30 minutes, Public Service had that road open so SCE&G could get in there and repair the lines. And we were only out of electricity for 2 hours, thanks to the town of Mount Pleasant being prepared for that storm. Secondly, town council's in a conundrum. Everybody wants to sell their property and make a huge amount of money. That's one problem, greed. The other problem is the developers want to come in here and they want to make a lot of money, more greed. Y'all have to discern whether we're going to have single-family homes, continued condominiums, 5- and 6-story buildings, which we do not want. For those folks that have moved here from other places, if you like a big town, move. For those of us that have lived here most of our lives, we want to see things stay the same. We don't want massive intrusion by huge buildings and parking garages. We just don't. So all I ask is that each council member remember, these folks put you in office not the developers. You got too many things for people to shift their property rights. They're concerned about that. They want to be able to sell to whoever, whenever, and for how much. I've had a construction man that lives behind QDC tell me, I drove up behind him, talked to him about his house and what was being built behind his house. And he winked at me and he said, that's Grandma's house. That's not Grandma's house. He's going to rent it out. And the guy down the street from me, Mr. Freeman, Billy Freeman III, he's got a huge complex going there. He sells boats on James Island. A dentist used to live in the White House, and then he built a huge house next to that. He took the state sign down that the mill that was there, he took it down and put it behind his house and told me he wasn't going to put that sign back under any circumstances. He's going to move it down the street in front of me where the beach company owns a small piece of land and some property.
Thank you, Mr. Zidley.
Thank you.
Clay Duffy.
Welcome, Clay.
Thank you, Mayor. Mayor, members of the council, my name is Clay Duffy, 530 Reed Street, Noble Village. I'm speaking relative to item 8A, number 12, relative to the rezoning of 804 Royal from R1 to R2. I would request that you consider not making that change. This is the third change that's been requested in the last year to downzone from R1 to R2 in what's called the Deer subdivision. I think you've heard a number of folks oppose downzoning in that area. It's not necessarily a problem with what Mrs. Daniels is asked to do with her residents. I don't think anybody opposed that at POSA. But as Mr. Brimmer pointed out in committee, this is just not the right process to allow Mrs. Daniel to do what she wants by downzoning the property. The variance would stay with the building, the downzoning is going to stay with the property. So I'd ask that you give that consideration, that this is not the first time it's come up and it's going to come up again and again. As General Manager of Mount Pleasant Waterworks, I would like to speak in support of item 18. Mr. DeMora, the legal staff, Mr. Pagnarini, Lee Cave, Christiane Farrell, and a number of your staff, Jody Peel, have worked diligently with Mount Pleasant Waterworks on this issue, and I think we'll come up with a recommendation for you that will greatly assist the citizens of the town of Mount Pleasant in how we provide utility services both for the town and Mount Pleasant Waterworks to do it in a cost-effective manner and provide adequate tree protection throughout the town. So I'd like to thank you very much and ask for your support on that item.
Thank you, Mr. Duffy.
Barry Wolf.
There we go.
Evening, Barry.
Barry Wolf, 1468 Pocahontas Street. I would also like to say that the reaction of the town from the storm was fantastic, just to put on record. It seems we've reached a tipping point in the history of our town where we have to choose whether it is us, the townspeople, guiding the direction of our growth, or outside investors and advisors making the choices for us with the help of somebody who they feel they know what's best despite what we want. I would hope that those who took shovels to dirt at Coleman and Mill Street and those who voted for and supported the abomination constructed there understand that it's not what we believe fits the bill for our town. Did we have to make such a horrible, irreversible mistake before we decided, oops, it doesn't fit? The townspeople will certainly not forget nor forgive those who put it there. We've got an amendment tonight about town height limits. Lower them. The town raised them, they can lower them. Who says the town can giveth and not taketh away? Before you tonight is a recommendation to draft zoning and land use development amendments that will allow the town to study drainage issues and I hope look at density and traffic in Old Mount Pleasant and the Old Village. It would affect lot subdivision and the construction of ADUs. The minutes of the special planning committee meeting indicate that one member think any action at all is premature. To those of us who live in the area, it may be too little too late. The sky may not be falling, but the concrete is pouring. Finally, to those of you who will stand firm, almighty, in pledging to defend the rights of property owners despite everything, I would suggest that we all have property rights, every one of us in this town. Where is it written that the property rights of an individual or corporate landowner should have more rights than hundreds or thousands that a misplaced project would affect? Any talk about takings should include taking the character of our town, our quality of life, that is the result of bad planning and poor decisions by this body.
Thank you, Barry. Is there anyone else that would like to speak before we close this public speaking? Yes, ma'am. Please come forward. I give you 2 minutes to address the council. Please state your name and address. Welcome.
Good evening, Deanna Smith, 1431 Goblet Avenue. I wanted to speak against the restricting the ADUs in the old part of Mount Pleasant. It seems like a line has been drawn along Coleman Boulevard that sort of separates us from the rest of the town. It's almost like saying, we can't have them, don't even think about it, and you all consider it if you want to. They're wonderful, they're lovely. I've never seen an unattractive one. They're at the back of people's houses. It provides housing, business offices, etc. And I've lived here my whole life, and I think it's not the time to ban or restrict those accessible dwelling units. So I want the same property rights. I'm a town resident, lifelong voter. I want the same rules to apply to me that apply to the people in the north. So don't ban them, or else ban them citywide. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Smith. Mr. Ridd, would you like to speak to us tonight? Welcome.
Thank you. Good evening, Joseph Wren, 948 Center Street. I'd like to speak on item I-1, especially relating to stopping some types of construction until we completed drainage study is done in the old village. And the reason I'm here is I was with a group of friends last weekend at a soccer tournament, 9-year-old soccer tournament, so we had a lot of downtime to talk. And they're all residents from all parts of town. And one concern that came up from everybody when we were kind of talking through things is, what about the rest of the town? What about the drainage issues on Mathis Ferry that's almost undrivable when a heavy storm comes, or Rifle Range Road, or 41, which is an evacuation route, and with Horbeck Creek and the Seamart, the seawater coming up. And so there's concern with a lot of people that just wanting to be part of it, and not to have issues with the merit of the proposal. It's just singling out the old village. I had the pleasure of serving on the Historical Commission for several years and protecting that area, and the Old Village Board now does a great job, and it truly is one of my favorite places on earth. But it's not the town of Old Village, it's the town of Mount Pleasant. And I think as our elected body, as you do and you should, consider all our residents equally, no matter the voice or no matter the location.
And I was told, when I asked about the fire station in Dunes West, hey, where's the second truck coming from? Because they're really not staffed to take care of those size of the houses that are up there. Oh, don't worry, Mr. Kinane, there's going to be a new fire station in Carolina Park, and it just opened. It opened because people got $5,000 fire insurance bills, and they said, whoa, we better go do something about this, and they built it. Nice job. There's been no tragedies in the interim time, which is great. And this week, we're going to have a vote on adding more land to the town that's like 3 miles up, which I'm presuming is going to be covered by that new fire station. So there goes the extra redundancy that we built in, is now pulled up north. And that's fine, that's what happens in a growing town. But now we have, tonight also, we're talking about high-rise buildings. Now, that's a whole different ballgame. That requires a second alarm assignment that we don't have in town here. Yeah, the answer, we're going to get somebody from Charleston. Okay, have we timed the response from Huji Street, which is the closest engine in Charleston, over to where these high-rises are? It's not 5 minutes. It's just not 5 minutes. We're talking about a 20-minute response time. Not really acceptable. There's really no forum to come in and talk about this issue, so I just bring it up tonight because you can see the contrast with two big issues before you tonight, that it's real. You're going to go either way on these issues, but that's a part of it, And it's a big piece of the puzzle that has to be addressed. And the ability to handle two things at once in this town doesn't exist. Two real fires at once, we're out of luck. And that's just unacceptable. And it might be time to really take a step back and look and say, do we need to convert those nice shiny Tahoes we got 2 years ago? Just make them into engine companies? That's a start. You know, let them fly around town. It's great. I'm not saying yes or no on a high-rise building. You know, there might be an appropriate place for it. But we have to have the infrastructure to handle things that could happen in those buildings before they get built.
Thank you very much for your time. Good evening.
Good evening. I'm Eve Green, and I'm on 1037 Trotters Boulevard. I'm speaking about item A6. And I wanted to just address the issue that I think has to do with the compatibility of the low-density neighborhood future land map for this property being rezoned. And I wanted to mention that it's R1 and it's in that community conservation area, but the community conservation, R1 and R2, all allow for 3 homes per acre. Community conservation and R1 are they're both compatible with community conservation, but R1 and R2 are compatible with the neighborhood low-density future land map. We're only looking to put 2 houses on that property. There's several communities coming up. One that's in permitting now, just a mile down the road. He's putting 3 houses on 0.91 acres. Myrtle Grove is a little bit further down. It's 4 houses on 1.6 acres. There's quite a few of them out there, as you know. But we're only looking for 2 homes. I think in this particular area, there's a lot of older homes and rundown trailers. I think 2 homes would actually improve the area quite a bit. And the cost of building is so expensive right now that I can't see anybody. I don't know if any one of you would build on an acre of land on Rifle Range as your primary residence. It's almost, even if they were given that lot away, it's almost not doable. And so what I wanted to mention was that I know that you're really not looking at profitability as being a reason to rezone, but when you look at the reason why the owner did it, he did it for his retirement, and it's almost making him unable to retire at this point. So I'm just asking you to, reconsider the area, or consider the area, I should say, and the request as you decide whether you rezone or not.
Thank you very
from
much.
R1 to R2.
Appreciate you visiting with us tonight.
Thank you.
Come on, we'll call you the last one. Let's have what you have to say. Welcome to the council meeting.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I'm the owner of that property he is speaking about.
Can you please state your name and address for us, just for the record?
John Al Vanderhorst. John Al Vanderhorst. And I'm 75 years old. I just retired at 73, but for health. And I'm looking towards, want to sell this property. So to help me, because I was working in construction all my life. After farming, we farmed that property. My father and I, we farmed that property. And so I need to, cost of living is so high. And I hope that you all consider me selling it, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Vanderhorst. Thank you for coming tonight. And we are done with the public comment and correspondence. We have a lot to do under new business. Would the council like to take a 5-minute break before we move in? Thank you. So we'll take a quick 5-minute break, and if y'all just keep it short, because we have a lot of business tonight. Thank you.
Hey, this is his second one. I'm starting good. Lord, nice job in the video. Nice job in the
He wore me out yesterday, just by my house.
All right, folks, thank you, Ms. Farrell.
texted me.
Moving on to new business. Item number 1 is a first reading of an ordinance to rezone from R2 to neighborhood commercial, a piece of property on 529 Mill Street. Ms. Farrell?
Yes, ma'am. This was in front of you last month, this request to rezone from R2 to neighborhood commercial. This property is located at 529 Mill Street. There's a map on the screen showing you it's directly across from the boat landing at the end of Simmons Street. When you reviewed this last month, you had a few questions related to the use and thought it might be appropriate to send this to the Shem Creek Task Force to have some discussion. I know that you all have received a memo from Ms. Sims, who is the staff representative from the task force, who explained some of their discussion, and it was generally that they agreed, they recognized the transition in the area from from residential to more commercial, and didn't make any recommendations specific to this use, however. Just as a reminder, this property is in the Urban Corridor Overlay District, which they have not requested to be removed from that. The Urban Corridor does allow either residential uses or commercial uses only if the underlying use is commercial. That's why they have requested neighborhood commercial, because they would like to use it for that purpose. So this went to the Planning Commission, and they recommended approval by a vote of 4-2. The Planning Committee recommended approval by a vote of 2-1, and of course was deferred last month, so now it's in front of you for first reading.
Thank you much, Ms. Farrell. Mr. Haney?
Yes. I'd like to make a motion that we defer this. And my reasoning for that is that I attended the Shem Creek Task Force meeting where this was discussed. And when we deferred it to the task force, the reason was to let them complete their work, let them get a bird's eye view and not do this piecemeal. And for the same reason that we didn't want them acting like a de facto Shem Creek Zoning Board of Appeals, we should not have acted on this rightfully, and we did not, to start zoning things piecemeal right out from under them while they are trying to put together a master plan, as it were. So I'm just asking that, and I'll put this in the form of a motion, that we defer this until the Shem Creek Task Force has finished its assigned task. And let's take a look at all of that area and make wise decisions based on the whole picture.
Second.
We have a motion, a second. Any other discussion, Mr. Smith?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Will is it your intent in that motion to allow the use to continue as it was, which we had in that original? So everything remains the same until we say that there's a change. Is that?
Yeah, that was what was in our original motion.
Would you just amend that just so that it's clear, if you don't mind, that everything remains the same as it was before? It was stated that way earlier, and I want to support the motion in the interest of protecting the property.
Okay, that the non-conforming use as present be allowed to continue until such time as we take this up after we've looked at all the recommendations by the Shem Creek Task Force.
Thank you.
So I'll amend my second.
We have a motion, a second. Mr. Santos, comments?
Yeah, I read the information from the task force, and I don't want to put you on the spot, Lauren, but it seemed to me they had a lot of questions, a lot of concerns about that becoming commercial. I think I read in some of the areas about, if the business they're working now leaves, another one comes in, it could be a lot more congestion down there. I think they were concerned about parking and things like that, and so that kind of got my interest in that if they did for some reason move out of there and something else came in, it might be worse than what we have there now. And so, Christiane, I'm not quite sure what could go there. Say, for instance, the paddleboard folks left out of there and it remained commercial. What would be allowed to be there based on that zoning?
Well, residential could be a permitted use because the way the urban corridor works.
Right.
But aside from that, most of the typical commercial uses that we would see it's neighborhood commercial. So that would allow for your office type uses. It does allow for retail type uses, services like I don't know, a spa or something of that nature. Those are all permitted uses within neighborhood commercial.
Okay.
Thank you. Mr. Carrier?
Christiane, what is the parking requirement if we did go to the commercial designation?
It will depend on the use.
Pardon me?
It depends on the use.
Depends on the use.
Yes, sir. So something like what they have operating right now is pretty minimal parking demand, but that could change, and of course, whatever it is will generally be restricted by what they have the ability to park.
So where is their parking now?
They don't really have it clearly designated on it, but they do have areas where it can be accomplished.
Okay.
Ms. Farrell, I have one question about floodproofing. Do you know what flood zone that's in?
I don't know what flood zone is in.
But obviously with its proximity to the water, if they wanted to use it commercially and upgrade it from the type of use that it was now, they would have to bring it to code for floodproof?
Yes, ma'am, in all likelihood, depending on to what degree they had to improve the building, then flood regulations may come into play.
About
They would have to
50%
comply.
rule, is that?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Mr. Garch?
Mr. Farrell, what's presently taking place at the business now?
They're using it for storage for a kayak paddleboard business.
And does that mean, to your knowledge, that they're storing them so close to the Shem Creek boat landing, that's their point of access?
Well,
the
that's been
kayaks?
discussed at the public hearing, it was discussed at committee. What's been represented is that they are using them for storage, using the space for storage, and then taking the kayaks and the paddleboards elsewhere to launch, not necessarily right there at the boat landing.
Okay, thank you.
All right, we have a motion, it's amended, and a second as amended. Any other questions for Ms. Farrell, comments?
Mayor Page, I do want to make sure, I don't know the time frame for the Shem Creek Task Force. Final reading has to be accomplished within 6 months per our ordinances, or it's not approved. And so doing the math, and maybe Ms. Sims could speak to this, but that would give town council all the way until January for final reading. But I do want to make sure that everybody's aware that that time frame is within the zoning code.
Mr. Carrier?
Just a question about the Shem Creek Task Force. Are they prepared to revisit this issue more than they have already?
I don't know that. I can't answer that.
Can we ask,
We can certainly bring it back. I will tell you, there was some discussion at the last meeting, obviously that was reflected on your memo. But other than what they discussed, they brought about their concerns with the parking and future commercial uses should the business that's currently operating out there vacate in the future, the impact of whatever future business might come out of there. But other than that, they really had no additional concerns at that time or any information to present. Everything that was discussed was reflected on that memo. It's really just parking, making sure that they had the available parking required for the use, and the impact of any future business that may come in there. I think I really would like something a little more restricted in terms of business use if that was the direction of Congress.
so did the task force think that they had more work to do?
Not necessarily. The conversation really came to a natural end. Everybody just kind of stopped talking at that point. Once they made their initial comments, they had some dialogue back and forth about how the property is currently functioning, and whether it should be, that was really the natural progression of that general area. But other than that, the conversation kind of naturally ended. But we can certainly revisit it and prompt them with some questions, more targeted questions, if that's what you would like, to see if we can get more specific feedback from them.
Mr. Garch?
Mr. Will, would you think then your motion, because maybe the first time around for the task force, they didn't have a clear enough directive to respond back to the council's wishes. Do you feel like that you're covering that in the motion so we won't have them just talk about it, that they actually reach something, if that's what you want to achieve?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, what I'm saying is the ultimate responsibility comes to us, whether it gets zoned or not. And I didn't feel like it was fair to them, either in the comprehensive nature of their charge, or in the timing of their charge, to ask them to look at one piece of property and all of a sudden become experts at recommending what to do about zoning. And so whether they choose to make a recommendation on one particular property or do all of their work and say, this is the way this is trending, or like Lauren just said, I was there and I heard them say, we have some concerns about what would the next user be and how much traffic would that add. You've got boats coming up that ramp at low tide, as you might be one of them. They're coming up hot, pulling a trailer. And so there was a lot of concern about that. So they haven't finished looking at the landings and the usage and the parking and all of that. And I just feel like, and I told them this, and I'll say it again, I don't think the best decision by either them or us can be made at this stage in the work of that committee, task force.
Okay. You satisfied, Mr. Church? All right, any other comments? We have a motion that's amended and a second that's amended. All in favor? Aye. Opposed?
Nay.
One nay. You good? All right. Ms. Farrell, items number 2, 3, 4, and 5 all relate to the property now known as Liberty Hill. We heard during public comment from the representatives that they would ask that this be deferred. Is there anything else that you might add to us for that?
No, ma'am, I'm glad to explain any of the applications that are in front of you, or if you prefer to discuss their deferral first.
Thank you. I have Mr. Smith.
Madam Mayor, thank you. I'm prepared to make that motion to defer items 2, 3, 4, and 5 up to 60 days and send those items directly back to the planning committee for further discussion.
I have a motion and a second for deferral. Any other questions, discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And the ayes have it. That item is deferred. Item number 6 is an ordinance to rezone a piece of property from R1 to R2. We did hear information on this earlier. It's on Rifle Range Road near Benning Road.
This is a request to rezone, it's a 1-acre tract of land, to rezone from R1 to R2. Just as a reminder of a few the zoning requirements, R1 requires a minimum of 10,000 square foot lot, R2 is a minimum of an 8,000 square foot lot. Obviously, with 1 acre, they clearly have the ability to accomplish the required minimum lot size and to have a 10,000 square foot lot. However, the issue is with the lot width. The lot width is not wide enough as it exists today. If they wanted to subdivide to create 2 lots, it can't be accomplished with the R1 zoning. That is the reason for the request, is because a subdivision could be accomplished. Minimum lot width could be met if the lot was rezoned to R2. As a side note to that, however, most of you are familiar, we talk about it from time to time. If the lot was rezoned to R2, it would still have to go back in front of the Planning Commission, because the lot is, as you see from the screen, it is long and skinny. And so subdivision straight down the middle would cause the lot to exceed our width to depth ratios, which would have to be considered by the Planning Commission. So even a rezoning from R1 to R2 does not mean automatic subdivision. The Planning Commission would have to review and consider a waiver for that particular subdivision. The Planning Commission and the Planning Committee have both reviewed this and both have unanimously recommended denial of the subdivision. Of the rezoning.
Thank you.
Madam Mayor, based on the recommendations from the Planning Committee and the Commission, I recommend denial of the request.
Second.
I have a motion and 2 seconds. Did you give it? Any comments, questions from the council? I do have one, Ms. Farrell. Can you tell us, so since Planning Commission already denied it, and regardless of our action here tonight, it would have to go back before the Planning Commission, can you tell me the difference in the lot width I mean, I won't hold you exactly to it, but what they need to accomplish and what they have.
Let's see, the lot is 136 feet wide, in order to accomplish, a subdivision with R1 zoning, but the lot has to be 80 feet wide, so obviously you need at least 160 feet in width, they only have 136. If it was rezoned to R2, the lot width is 60 feet, so it could be accomplished. They can meet the lot width.
So they're 14 feet short from accomplishment, even under their current R1 zoning.
That's right.
Thank you. Any other questions for Ms. Farrell? All in favor of denial?
Aye.
Opposed? And the ayes have it. Item number 7 is an annexation.
Yes, this has several parts to it. This is the new Lucy Beckham School, Old Wando High School. So the first thing that you have in front of you is an annexation. Let's go to them now. In the next map, please. What we are talking about with the annexation is this 2.65 acre tract of land right here owned by Charleston County School District. They intend to perhaps use it ultimately for tennis courts, but anyway, it's part of the rezoning request with the larger part of the tract for all those properties that are owned by the school district, and so it's
Move
fronted.
for first reading.
Second.
I have a motion and a second for first reading. Any other questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And the ayes have it.
First reading ordinance number 16072, an ordinance providing for the annexation of approximately 2.65 acre tract of land located at 1536 Mathis Ferry Road, identified by TMS number 55900000083, and depicted on a plat recorded by the Charleston County RMC office in book L12, page 64.
And then this is the rezoning on the piece of property across the street?
Yes, ma'am. Well, all of it. So this would be the 2.65 acres right here. The requested zoning is for public institutional, and then the rezoning for the Old Wando, and then the church and nursery school, old nursery school.
Move for first
here.
reading.
Second.
I have a motion and a second for first reading. All in favor?
Aye.
Oh, sorry, questions?
Well, I just had a question. If it's not public institutional now, what was the school property all these years?
R1. It's been R1 all these years.
It was a boarding school.
But I was cold.
I'm sorry, Mr. Bremer?
I think Ms. Farrell wanted to add something.
Oh, yes, ma'am, I'm
Yes,
sorry.
I just want to make a clarification on the way the title is worded. There is a Scribner's error. It identifies the address of 956 and 950 Mathis Ferry Road. That actually is Whipple Road. It was properly advertised, and the body of the text is correct. It says Whipple, so it's just a Scribner's error that we will have correct for final reading on that address.
Thank you. I have a motion and a second. Any other comments?
One more comment. Christiane, does that include the stadium as well?
Yes,
Good.
it does.
I would certainly like to see them keep that stadium up, just for the record.
Mr. Garch?
Well, they're keeping the field.
I know, but I like the stadium.
Okay, well,
I like the stadium.
Consistent on that.
Just for the record, I'd just like to see that stadium stay there.
Ms. Farrell, real quick, do we know, it's a little different in this, but do we know, it just triggered my brain here. Have they submitted for Wando High School to be rezoned yet? The existing Wando up north?
No, they have not.
Okay, thank you. Just let everybody know that is not P1 and it needs to be. Thank you.
Results are out.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. We've had lots of comments and questions. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And the ayes have it.
First reading ordinance number 16073, an ordinance to rezone from R1 Low Density Residential District to PI1 Public Institutional 1 District, approximately 45.62 acre tract of land comprised of 3 parcels located at 1560 Mathis Ferry Road, 946 Mathis Ferry Road, and 950 Mathis Ferry Road. Identified by TMS numbers 55900000081, 55800000176, and 55800000188, respectively, and depicted on a plat recorded by the Charleston County RMC office in Plat Book L, page 153, Book AD, page 71, and Book W, page 96.
Item number 9 is an ordinance to amend the height on those properties.
Yes, and the height request only applies to these on this side of the street. It does not apply to this one over here on this corner. for 55 feet, and that has been recommended for approval by the planning commission as well as the planning.
Move for first reading.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any comments?
Yeah, Madam Mayor.
Questions?
Is that to the ridge or is that to the eaves?
That would be at the highest point.
Highest point. Just want to be clear.
Madam Mayor,
Yes, sir, Mr. Smith.
Christiane, is that, the 55 feet, the CASD, Center for Advanced Studies at Wando currently, the height of that building, do you know? off the top of your head?
They've said that that is the same, that it is that same building.
So for a visual for all of us here who are familiar with that building, it would be
Yes, sir.
similar to that.
It's three floors, right,
Yeah.
yes, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you. I have a motion and a second. Mr. Garch, I'm sorry. See you down there.
Mr. Demore, have you heard from the school district on the existing baseball field that is presently owned by the town, which was the school district? Have they requested?
Not yet, sir.
They have not. Okay. Before this vote, I would just like to take a moment, yes, believe it or not, and to commend a forward-thinking school district over several years ago. They put us in position to make this move, and they also made the correct steps to purchase the two pieces of property that you see that are in the purple, the old daycare and the church. Am I seeing that right?
No, it serves the other two yellow
Oh,
pieces.
excuse me. I'm
Those two-
sorry, right
those two
before
right
that
there.
purple, yeah.
Yes, sir.
Took my glasses off for a minute. Anyway, this would commend them, and also the fact that they recognize the situation with the number of students at the existing Wando. And this school will be open August of 2020, if not before. And they also, rightfully so, made a change to have this school. That's why they're asking for the height. Y'all all aware of this, but I want to say it out for the benefit of the folks here. To build this school for a core of 1,500 versus the 1,200 that they originally talked about. Thank you.
Any other comments? All in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Opposed? And the ayes have it.
First reading, ordinance number 16074, an ordinance to amend the Town of Mount Pleasant building height plan map pertaining to approximately 45.62 acre tract of land comprised of 3 parcels located at 1560 Mathis Ferry Road, 946 Mathis Ferry Road, and 950 Mathis Ferry Road. Identified by TMS numbers 559-0000081, 558-0000176, and 558-0000188 respectively, and depicted on a plat recorded by the Charleston County RMC office in Plat Book L, page 153, Book AD, page 71, and Book W, page 96, by increasing the maximum building height from 35 feet to 55 feet.
Item number 10 is the adoption of that resolution of annexation.
Madam Mayor, move for approval of 10 and 11.
Yeah, second.
I have a motion and a second for approval of items 10 and 11. Any other questions? Comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And the ayes have it.
Resolution 16091, first reading, ordinance number 16075, an ordinance to rezone from R1 low-density residential district to PI1 public institutional 1 district, approximately 6.16 acre tract of land located on Whipple Road near its intersection with Mathis Ferry Road, identified by TMS number 559-0000095, known as the Town of Mount Pleasant baseball field, and depicted in a plat recorded by the Charleston County RMC office in Book L12, page 64. Mayor
Item-
Page?
Yes,
If I may, real quick, before we leave this topic.
sure.
I would just ask, there are going to be several improvements to the intersections near this brand-new high school. The biggest one being, Brad, as you know, the turn lane off of 17 coming from the north, and you headed south to turn right onto Mathis Ferry. I just would charge all of us, if you're still around by that time, to make sure all of our road improvements are finished before the school opens. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other comments on this before we leave this issue? Item number 12 is the first reading of an ordinance to rezone a property from R1 to R2. It's located at 804 Royal Avenue.
Yes, this is a quarter-acre tract of land located at the corner of Klein and Royal. The property is actually, with the rezoning, would be proposed to become part of the special R2 overlay district. It was discussed in Planning Commission, also in Planning Committee. There is not any intent to subdivide this particular piece of property. It would not, it can't meet the minimum dimensional requirements. What is instead the reason for the request is the owner would like to construct a front porch. There's already an existing non-conforming setback issue. The rezoning to R2 and the becoming part of the SR2 overlay district will allow the non-conforming portion of the house to become compliant, but also will allow the property owner to put on the addition, which is, has been expressed as being a porch addition to the property. This did go to the Board of Zoning Appeals originally for variance for the encroachment. This was not approved by the Board of Zoning Appeals. Instead, the Board of Zoning Appeals thought that the more appropriate avenue may be to seek the zoning, and that everything would become conforming through the actions of a rezoning and inclusion into the SR2 overlay district. The Planning Commission recommended approval by a vote of 6-2, and the Planning Committee recommended approval by a vote of 2-1.
Mr. Carey?
So the intent of the owner was she can't do anything else with the property as far as subdividing it based on the setbacks and all that, right? No matter what, no matter R1 or R2.
That's right. Even with R2, it can't meet the dimensional requirements for subdivision.
Thank you. Move for
We have a
approval.
motion, for approval
Second.
and a second. We have a speaker signed up, and but I'd be glad to
There's a
take-
question, Mr. Farrell. What was the hardship what did Boza state, the rationale for?
I think just that they did not feel that it was met the test with respect to a hardship, which is requiring for a variance, and the more appropriate avenue would be through a rezoning.
Okay, thank you.
I have a question, and I know we're going to deal with this quite a bit in the near future on some items that are coming forward. Can you tell me the importance of what it means if her property becomes non-conforming?
It can continue. It's allowed to continue as non-conforming structure. With that, the only thing that may come into play is if there were a fire or something that destroyed the home, and it was destroyed by more than 50%, then whatever would be built new would be required to come into compliance, of course, unless a variance or something like that was granted by the Board of Zoning Appeals, but otherwise it would have to come into compliance with the code.
So she couldn't build the house back as it stands, it'd be a smaller home? Less?
Or different in some, shift it on the property. It is still a quarter-acre tract of land. It is covered in some very significant trees that I think have a lot to do with her inability to add on with the current zoning or even with the rezoning. The non-conforming use can continue with the non-conforming setbacks.
It continues unless there's damage beyond 50%?
That's right.
Okay, thank you. We do have someone signed up to speak.
Barry Wolf.
You're good? Are you the applicant? Would the council entertain her addressing us?
Sure, I just got one question.
Oh,
before
absolutely,
that.
I'm sorry.
No,
Ms.
that's
Bustos?
okay. Christine,
Yes, sir.
you said this would make it conforming.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, it's okay. She's going to speak, Barry. Come forward. You have, please give us your name and address for the record. You have 2 minutes to address the council.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Marie Daniel. I live at 804 Royal Avenue in Mount Pleasant. Lovely place to live, by the way. So I've lived there for 12 years, and the trees are wonderful. I would never even, that's the whole purpose of me moving into that house, because of those beautiful trees. I love them, but they restrict my property dramatically. I have 3 grand oaks, one on each side of my property and one behind me on my neighbor's lot, that really restrict where I can do anything. So to put a screen porch on, I would need to have that 6 feet on the one side of the house. It's the only side of the house that I can put that porch on. So I respectfully request that you grant that R2. I have no intentions of moving. We retired here, we love it here. And even if I did move, the property is restricted to do anything with it. Other houses are huge around especially my next door neighbor's house. It's huge. And there are many other large homes. I have a very small home, one of the small homes that are left in the town. So I thank you for reviewing this. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Thank
Barry,
you.
have you changed your mind? You'd like to speak to us? Thank you.
Barry Wolf, 1468 Pocahontas. Just wanted to speak in favor of it. I was on the Board of Zoning Appeals when this came up in front, and am on the Board of Zoning Appeals now, and I voted against the motion to deny because of the situation of the house. It is not subdividable, and it is because of the grand trees, and I thought she should get her 6 feet of porch. Thank you.
Thank you, Barry. We appreciate your comments. Is there any other questions or comments from the council? We have a motion and a second to approve. Mr. Haney?
Yes, ma'am, thank you. Well, being the front porch test guy, this is kind of right up my alley, and I'm all for another porch.
She's gonna do a back porch, just so you know.
Oh, well then never mind. I was gonna ask, is this a front porch or a back porch? Yeah, it's okay, it's a porch, right?
Porch off the side of our house.
The side of the house, okay. My reservation with this is what we heard from the neighbors tonight. We're using the broad acts of rezoning to get what I believe should be a variance. And I am all for her getting that variance. I would go to BOZA and speak for it and ask that it be approved. But once we start rezoning to R2 in this area of town, I'm afraid we're opening Pandora's box. So I would vote against this motion, but I would really fight for the variance for your porch. I would really like to get a variance rather than starting to rezone properties to R2.
Thank you, Mr. Haney. I do think we heard that she did go to BOZA and she was denied. So I don't know if there's an opportunity, Mr. Pagliardi, perhaps you could address that. Where would the appeal process go if you're turned down at BOZA? You don't get to go back to BOZA, you go to circuit court?
Right, there's an appeal process.
So the appellate process would be not to go back to BOZA, but go to the circuit court and ask for relief through the court. Okay, so we have a motion for approval and a second. Any other questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
Can we qualify who the noes are? We have 2 noes.
Thank you.
All right, thank you very much.
First reading, ordinance number 16076, an ordinance to rezone from R1 low-density residential district to R2 low-density residential district, and property to remain in the SR2 OD, special R2 overlay district, an approximately .27 acre tract of land located at 804 Royal Avenue, identified by TMS number 532-0900-101, and depicted on a plat recorded by the Charleston County RMC office in Book AX, page 22.
Thank you. Item number 13 is a rezoning on the First Baptist Church property, public to public institutional.
Yes, this is the, well,
move for
it's now
first
Life
reading.
Park.
I have a motion second for first reading. Sorry about that, Ms. Farrell. Didn't mean to cut you off. Any comments or
Got it.
concerns from the council? All in favor? Aye. Opposed, and the ayes have it.
First reading, ordinance number 16077, an ordinance to rezone from First Baptist Church North PDMU SR Plan Development Mixed Use Suburban Rural District to PI1 Public Institutional 1 District and AB Area-Wide Business District, an approximately 19.75 acre tract of land located 1151 George Browder Boulevard, identified by TMS number 598-00000007, and depicted on a plat recorded by the Charleston County RMC office in Book L15, page 96.
14 is a single-family property in Darrell Creek Plantation, asking for annexation.
Move for approval.
Have a motion, a second for annexation. Any questions?
Yes.
Clarification on the first and second?
We need first and seconds again, please, for the record.
Second.
Who was the first and who was the second?
Done. Whatever.
Somebody claim it, it's fine.
That wasn't me, I just have a question.
Okay. I appreciate it. Mr. Garge, and a second. Mr. Carey, are you the second?
Yes.
Oh, thank you. Mr. Garge.
Yes, my question, and we're going to see, obviously, there's a few more of these, and we're going to start seeing more and more of these up the way at Bulls Bay. Mr. Demora, before this annexation, how are they covered right now for fire coverage? Fire district. Okay. Thank you.
I have a motion and a second for approval. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And the ayes have it.
First reading, ordinance number 16078, an ordinance providing for the annexation of approximately 1 acre tract of land located at 446 Commonwealth Road in Darrell Creek Plantation, identified by TMS number 596-08000010, and depicted as Lot 10, Block A, F, and A River Station, and shown on a plat recorded by the Charleston County RMC Office in Book EA, page 86.
Item number 15 is a similar situation in Bulls Bay.
Move for approval of 15, 16, and 17.
Second.
First reading.
All three of those are in Bulls Bay. I have a motion for approval of all three and a second. Are you good? Oh, that's what we wanted to know. Any comments or questions from the council? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And the ayes have it.
First reading, ordinance number 16079, an ordinance providing for the annexation of approximately 1.47 acre tract of land located on Bulls Bay Boulevard and Rice Fields at Bulls Bay, identified by TMS number 632-0000140, and depicted as Lot 60 in Phase 3, and a plat recorded by the Charleston County RMC Office in Book EH, page 45. First reading, ordinance number 16080, an ordinance providing for the annexation of approximately 1.92 acre tract of land located at 855 Bulls Bay Boulevard and Rice Fields at Bulls Bay, identified by TMS number 632-0000137, and depicted as Lot 57 in Phase 3, on a plat recorded by the Charleston County RMC Office in Book EH, page 45. First reading, ordinance number 16081, an ordinance providing for the annexation of approximately 1.02 acre tract of land located on True Blue Court and Rice Fields at Bulls Bay, identified by TMS number 632-0000114, and depicted as Lot 34, on a plat recorded by the Charleston County RMC Office in Book EG, page 111.
Thank you. Item number 18 is a change in the Code of Ordinance as it pertains to submittal process and tree mitigation requirements.
Yes, ma'am. This is a code amendment to both the land development regulations as well as the zoning code. This was reviewed pretty extensively by the planning committee, who saw this 3 times. Planning commission reviewed it at their last meeting. Both groups have recommended approval. I can go through as much as you would like very quickly with some of this.
Move for first reading.
Second.
I have a motion and a second for first reading. What I would really like you to do, if you can clarify what it means that the increase in the proposed tree mitigation goes from 150 to 200%.
Yes.
Thank you.
That came out of, well, I'll back up. When one of the things that we're trying to clarify with this process is how mitigation is accomplished. Tree mitigation is accomplished. We would like for it to be accomplished earlier so that we are not having to track down tree mitigation as one home after another receives its certificate of occupancy. Staff had proposed a couple of different options that the developer could pursue for tree mitigation. We did hear back from the development community, who also requested that there be an option for a bond. So after some discussion amongst staff, we determined that the only way that we would really be comfortable with this is with a cash bond. And we had proposed 150%. That is the amount that they would have to pay. That bond would be good for a period of 2 years. However, when this went to the planning committee thought that that amount should be higher and recommended that the bond, instead of 150% of the mitigation costs, should be 200% of the mitigation costs. And of course, once they accomplish their mitigation, they will be able to receive those monies back.
Well, thank you, Ms. Farrell, and particularly thank the planning committee. We are Tree City. Trees are very important to our citizens, and I certainly appreciate y'all's work on this. So I have a motion and a second for approval. Any other comments? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? And the ayes have it.
First reading, ordinance number 16082, an ordinance to amend the Town of Mount Pleasant Code of Ordinances, Chapter 155, Land Development Regulations, and Chapter 156, Zoning Code, as described herein, and in Exhibits A and B, all pertaining to changes to the definitions, submittal process, and tree mitigation requirements.
Thank you. Item number 19 is the first reading of an ordinance to amend the Code of Ordinance with third-party building plans review. We had a public hearing on this earlier.
No, ma'am, we didn't. This is just an amendment to the building code section of our code. This was related to the process changes, though, but what this will allow is for our building division to provide that an applicant can do a third-party plan review. So this establishes that, and also establishes the fees that would be charged if they decide to pursue a third-party plan review.
Move for approval.
I have a motion and a second comment, Mr.
Just
Chairman?
some,
Second, just for discussion.
Thank you. I
just some
thought we had-
clarity, Christiane, on that.
Yes, sir.
Who's requesting the third-party review? We are,
The applicant would request a third-party plan review. So for example, we've got some folks that are already interested in it. The Solana, which is going to be the retirement community located right near Long Point, very large building. They have requested to do third-party plan review. So they will have to, they pay for it. They pay for their third-party plan review. They'll still pay some additional fees back to the town because we will still be coordinating and facilitating that plan review. But that's who we expect this should be for, or our large projects, so that our staff can concentrate more on the smaller projects or commercial upfits and things of that nature.
Do we have a review in that process, though, at the end, after the third party?
Of the third, well, we won't, no, it will have to be stamped and sealed by whoever the
third party.
reviewer is. Yes, sir.
So that would be the final stage
Yes, sir.
of the review.
I have a motion and a second. Any other questions?
Yeah.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
1 no.
First reading, ordinance number 16083, an ordinance to amend subparagraph 11 of paragraph A of section 150.002 of chapter 150 of the Mount Pleasant Code of Ordinances, providing for third-party plan review of building plans and fees therein.
Thank you. Item number 20 is another ordinance to amend the Code of Ordinances pertaining to the Design Review Board and buffer yards.
Yes, this came about through committee. We took it through the process with the planning commission. This will allow the design review board to reduce the quantity of plantings. If a buffer happens to be located against like a wetland or something of that nature, for example, they can't reduce the buffer width, but just can have some consideration towards the quantity of plantings, and this has been recommended for approval by the
Move for
commission.
first reading. Second.
I have a motion and a second for first reading. Any questions from the council? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And the ayes have it.
First reading, ordinance number 16084, an ordinance to amend the Town of Mount Pleasant Code of Ordinances, chapter 156 zoning code, as described herein and in Exhibit A, pertaining to changes in the design review board approval of buffer yard plans.
Item number 21 is another amendment to the Code of Ordinances. This is related to tree protection.
This is, and this is one that we drafted specific to the maintenance and installation of infrastructure. So this would apply to instances with Mount Pleasant Waterworks or our own Public Services Department with respect to the ability to remove trees for the purposes of installation or maintenance of our
Move for
infrastructure.
approval, item 21.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. This will go back to the Planning Commission again for public hearing, correct?
That's right. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you very much. Any other questions from the council? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And the ayes have it.
First reading, ordinance number 16085, an ordinance to amend the Town of Mount Pleasant Code of Ordinances, chapter 156, related to tree protection.
Thank you. Moving on to old business. B1 under old business is the final reading of an ordinance to amend the chapter 156 of the Code of Ordinances pertaining to building heights in the UCCBS and the UCCDB.
Mayor?
Yes?
I'd like to make a motion to amend the first reading. The motion would be to approve the heights of 45 feet to the ridge on Coleman and Ben Sawyer Boulevards with no more than 3 floors, and to extend the heights 55 feet to the ridge for interior parcels known as Mucci Plaza and Sea Island Shopping Center respectively, with no more than 4 floors, with setbacks being determined by the DRB. This motion also includes Chuck Dolly Boulevard remaining at 40 feet to the ridge.
Second.
Thank you. I have a motion and a second. Questions? So as this, I do have one question, Gary. So this is as it came out of the Planning Commission? Or this is,
Yes, ma'am, I believe it is. Not entirely, but I believe the bulk of the
I've
boards,
got
yes,
the
ma'am.
chart that we had at planning committee if, it's going to be several. Okay. All right, so what this chart provides is what currently adopted regulations are, pending ordinance, which is, which you have first reading on, the planning commission's recommendation, and then finally the planning committee recommendations are in the last column.
does your motion reflect any of those? Okay, so I have a couple of questions for you, Christie Ann. As it relates to reading through the planning commission minutes and reading through the planning committee minutes, I heard many comments about the difference between measuring to the eave and measuring to the ridge. Can you explain to me a little bit what that means?
Okay, well, if we need to go back, I've got another slide that shows that, but the measurement to the building eave is, if you have a pitched roof, it's the bottom. So the pitched roof that's up above would not be included in the height. If it's measured to the ridge, then you're measuring to that top point. You're basically measuring to the highest point if it's being expressed as the roof ridge, whether that's a flat roof building or that's a pitched roof building. When we describe it as the roof ridge, that's the highest point. So the difference with the building eave is that there still may be a roof structure above that is not included in the height measurement.
So if we're talking about low country vernacular, or we're talking about design, there's a little more flexibility if you're measured to the eave than if you're measured to the ridge. Would that be a fair statement?
Well, in order to accommodate a roof structure, yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. Gary, I would ask for your consideration to amend your motion. And what I'd like you to include, there's another piece of property that is in this corridor that's very important to the overall aesthetics and design of the properties. And that property is the G2 property. So in my question, what I'd like you to continue or ask you to support is, would you consider including G2 in the same considerations that we're giving Wiltra Plaza and Sea Island Shopping Center due to the size of them? So they'd still have a 40-foot setback in the front because they front residential property. Then they would have 45 feet, and then the DRB would determine what interior width would be at 55. The reason I ask this is the size of the property is very similar. The 40-foot in the front certainly assures that vista that we're all very concerned about with the marsh, and that's regulated by our current ordinance.
You know, I understand that, Madam Mayor, you know, that area is basically what's considered a decompression zone as well. And I think from what I've heard from all the citizens around here is they want that to reflect that, the lower heights. And so, you know, based on that, you know, I'd like to keep it at 45 feet.
I appreciate that. Any other questions or comments?
Just a clarification, Mayor. So, Mr. Santos, your motion, does that reflect basically the planning committee recommendations?
Well, it kind of has, you know, most of it's a planning committee, yes, sir. But, you know, it looks like there's a little bit of a mixture, but most of it's a planning committee, yeah.
So what would be different in your motion versus the planning committee recommendations? I'm just trying to clarify.
Well, they're showing, let's see, 3 stories. Well, that's 4 stories. Yeah, I would say planning committee.
Because I know the recommendation on the planning committee was basically what we did at first reading, plus the DRB review on the step back, and then the 40-foot, reducing the 40 feet on Chuck Dolly. So if that's what you're saying, then we're basically talking about planning commission recommendation, that column?
You know, I would say yes, basically, Bob, it's been a little bit of both. I've had many discussions from different people, and the discussions I've had, they basically wanted this. So I wouldn't say it was any particular one. This is just discussions I've had with folks that have made these recommendations, and it seems to be more recommendations for this than it is for any one particular one of those.
So what I'm asking is that the same thing as what's up there in the planning committee?
I would have to look at that real careful, Bob. But I mean,
I have a copy, Gary.
I have a hard time even reading it.
You're good.
Gary, I heard your motion.
Yeah,
Everything
yeah.
you said is the same as planning committee.
Okay, if that's the case.
That's
then
what I said at the beginning.
That's what I needed to. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, so is everyone clear on the motion? Any other questions?
Question.
Paul? Yes, Mr.
So
Carrigan?
is there any way to pull out the motion and dissect it by these areas? Is there any way of doing that?
He's not willing to amend his
No, I
motion.
understand he's not, but I mean, is it possible if the motion's defeated that we can go back and look at each one of these areas individually?
I would hope we could, Elton. My concern is we have an ordinance in place that reduces height on any building to 40 feet where it faces residential. So Simmons Point is protected by 40 foot in the front. The underlying zoning on the property we call G2 is commercial. So I don't know why we are separating it out from the other two commercial properties if we have a decompression zone built in at 40 feet. So I understand your concerns about the vistas and the views, Gary, but I think we're protected there, and it is commercial property, and I can't see why we're going to separate one piece of property, perhaps to the disadvantage of someone who hasn't asked for any changes or variances. So that's where I'm coming from. So we have a motion, a second. Mr. Owens?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. To address Councilman Carrier's concerns about readdressing it at a later date, I mean, this council is certainly amenable to, looking at anything at a later date, not cast in stone. And I think we all have to be amenable enough to take a look later on to see what comes down the pike. But I haven't seen anything on that one piece of property that you're referring to that suggests why it needs to be any greater in height than 45 feet. I'm not aware, unless somebody else from this council is aware, of what what can or can't be done on that site with 45 feet. So I'm inclined at this point in time to agree with the motion that's been submitted to council.
Thank you, I appreciate it, and I'm inclined to oppose it, and the reason I would like to oppose it is I think that y'all have come up with something great, and I'd like to really, again, thank you for all the hard work you've done. I think the wedding cake design is ideal. I think what we've heard over and over again from the citizens is they don't like the blockiness of the buildings, they don't like them tall, they don't like the overpowering. I think you have three pieces of property that have underlying commercial zones, and those underlying commercial zones are what are guiding me. They're all similar in size. I think they should be treated the same. There's an extra protection that comes with G2 because they're the only ones that affront existing residential. Now, keeping that in mind, Moultrie Plaza does affront, it does back up to Ruta Muckle, which already puts it at 40 foot in the back. So we are seeking protection, against those existing residential neighbors, and we've certainly heard from Simmons Point that they want to mirror their height at 45 feet, but now they would get 40. So that's my only consideration. But anyway, so we have a motion and a second. Any other comments?
Are folks signed up to speak for this item?
Yeah, we have lots of people.
Okay.
I was just trying to get the council's comments out of the way.
Christine, could you show the map with the G2 property that's been discussed here? I think you had one that showed them all.
We have it overall.
Yep, that one. G2's been referenced a lot. Could you just point that out again?
G2 is the one right here.
And just for reference, can you point the other two out, just so everyone knows? So we have Sea Island Shopping Center and Moultrie Plaza. Thank you very much. And we have lots of people signed up to speak. Eric will call y'all. If y'all come up and line up and sign up, everyone will have their 2 minutes to address the council.
Sure. Two at a time. Mike Tinky, Rodley Millette.
You can ask them. Thank you. Councilman Smith has asked as you come forward to speak, if you would identify yourself as a property owner, I would appreciate it. Thank you. Rodley, you got the floor.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, members of council. My name is Rodley Millette. I live at 1296 Wisteria Wall Drive. I also serve on the Planning Commission, and when this item came to us, there was a great deal of discussion about heights on Coleman and Ben Sawyer. And we thought we came to a pretty decent compromise in accepting the height changes that were requested. However, we were concerned about making changes to how height would be measured. And if you can bring up that chart that shows the different recommendations. And the reason why we did not want to change how the heights are measured is to give some flexibility in the architecture of those buildings so that we do not end up with a lot of flat roof buildings on Coleman and Ben Sawyer. Now, I've heard Councilman Santos's motion, and I was confused because I didn't really understand which one of these it is, and he says there's a little bit of everything.
It would be nice if we can identify that, and along with those the recommendations made by the planning commission and the planning committee, to just so that we have a clear understanding of exactly what he's recommending. Just reading it off did
The planning
not help
committee.
me, and I don't know if it helped anyone else in the audience
As Mr. Garch mentioned, the planning committee, and I agreed.
with the planning committee. So your motion is to accept the planning committee's.
My motion is what I just read. Okay.
I'm just stating that it was confusing to me and probably some other people in the audience. I know what you read, but is it totally what the planning committee has
The planning
recommended?
committee. Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Millett. I was a little confused as well. Mr. Tinky? Thank you. He's here. He didn't chooses not to speak.
Trenton Walker.
Trenton Walker, 16 Charlotte Street, Charleston. I'm not a property owner, but I'm here on behalf of the property owner. I'm here on behalf of the Morrison and Pritchard family. They own G2. Councilman Owens, you asked whether there's any reason for this to be 55 feet. I've previously written counsel that there's a contract pending from Cal Atlantic. The contract envisions what we believe to be a soft approach, and it would be 76 basically townhomes. As you know, when you voted down the impact assessment of Middle Street Partners, that was almost 3 times the number of units. Height, I think you're viewing as a demon somewhat arbitrarily. I think that what's important is whether there's a good plan there, whether there's good development, whether there's going to be good design. And by pushing down the height here, you're going to cause the development to spread. You're going to cause more units. You're going to cause flat roofs, and that's not good development. We also would point out the fairness aspect of it, that this is across the street from where the height limit has been 55 feet. We've been through this drill before. We're back at it again. You have a choice tonight. You have a choice between doing the fair thing. You have a choice to do good design, to encourage this developer to do a good project there, to encourage residential rather than commercial. It is area-wide business. It can be commercial. And you can, tonight, by going along with the Planning Commission's recommendation, you can finally put this property to bed. Or you can push it down, the contract is lost, the fight goes on. We don't want to have that fight. We think that you should have confidence in this development. It's going to be a good one, but it can only happen if you follow the Planning Commission recommendation at 55 feet. I thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Walker.
Jimmy Bagwell.
My name is Jimmy Bagwell. I live at 41 Vincent Drive here in Mount Pleasant. And I'm here tonight to represent the Board of Directors of the Sam Shepherd Creek Corporation. And we feel very strongly that the ordinance that was voted on at the last time y'all met, I think it was an 8-to-1 vote, I think that's what we are for. And I think that if you've been listening to the citizens of this town for the last 3 years, one thing that has resonated is changes on Coleman and the overlay district, on Ben Sawyer, and we feel that the citizens have demanded this. We feel like 45 feet to the ridge is plenty tall for this area. It's all about quality of life and preserving our coastal community. And this is the heart of Mount Pleasant. This is where it all started. And what we've seen is the kind of development that people do not want. We'd like to see this passed just as it was at the last meeting by an 8-to-1 vote, and I don't see any reason to change that. So we ask you tonight to support that. 45 feet to the ridge, not to the eaves, and hopefully you will pass that as you did at your last meeting. Thank you very much.
Barry Wolf.
Thank you, Mr. Wolf. That's all we had signed up. Is there anyone else? I'll hold it open as I always do. Would anyone else like to address the council at this time on this issue? Thank you very much. We have a motion and a second. Call for the vote. Oh, I'm sorry. Did you have
the end of discussion?
Oh, well, you're very welcome to have discussion. That's why I didn't see you. I looked. I didn't see any hands.
No, thank you.
You're very welcome.
If I may, I just want to remind our colleagues, when we voted on this and it passed 8-to-1, this was not an agenda item buried in a long night's agenda like tonight, where we sat there for hours. We did this in a special meeting, And at that special meeting, we only had this one topic, and we got an 8-to-1 vote to basically do what this motion says we're doing tonight. I don't remember, and if somebody can show me in the minutes, I don't remember ever this body entertaining the idea to select one property and give that one property owner a benefit that we are not giving to any of the other property owners in that area. That, to me, is what's arbitrary and capricious, is to pick one when we've never discussed it before, and here at the second reading, to throw that in there because of a reason that a property owner has it under contract. The previous council did that and gave one building 10 feet that the other buildings around it don't have, and the results were disastrous. And we don't need, if we can learn, let's learn from our mistakes. Let's don't pick one property and give it a height and give it a scale that is out of context with the rest of the neighborhood. When this council, previous council, lowered the heights on 9 other properties in the Live Oak, Shem Creek area, Live Oak Drive, Shem Creek area, there was never talk that that was a taking. And so if there's no vested rights in this and there's no plan that has been submitted, somebody please tell me how that constitutes a taking in this one case and it didn't in those 9 cases. And my last point is that in the Bilo Shopping Center, we see 52 units per acre being built at a 50-foot height. Our current density max is 16 units per acre. Surely you can do that with 45 feet. And I ask you to please vote for the motion as it's presented.
Thank you, Mr. Haney. I appreciate your comments. I don't believe I called anyone mentioning that there was a taking. I don't think that was this was about.
No, you
I am
didn't.
trying to mirror, but by my suggestion, I am trying to mirror the neighborhoods. Simmons Point is a mix of 45 and 55 feet, and it does have a 40-foot setback, so that was my comments. Any other comments before we call for the vote? Ms. Christine?
Yes, ma'am. Mr. Brimmer?
Aye.
Mr. Brimmer votes yes. Mr. Bustos?
Aye.
Mr. Bustos votes yes. Mr. Carrier?
No.
Mr. Carrier votes no. Mr. Garch?
No.
Mr. Garch votes no. Mr. Haney?
Aye.
Mr. Haney votes yes. Mr. Owens?
Aye.
Mr. Owens votes yes. Mr. Santos?
Aye.
Mr. Santos votes yes. Mr. Smith?
Nay.
Mr. Smith votes no. Mayor Page?
No.
Mayor Page votes no.
Motion passes.
Final reading, ordinance number 16050, an ordinance to amend section 156.318, chapter 156 of the Town of Mount Pleasant Code of Ordinances pertaining to building height in the UC CBS and UC CDB.
Thank you. Item number 2 under old business
Move
is
for approval of the annexation, item number 2.
Second.
I have a motion and a second for an annexation of Pepper Plantation. All in favor, any comments, I'm sorry. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? And the ayes have it.
Final reading, ordinance number 16059, ordinance providing for the annexation of approximately 3.41 acre parcel of vacant land known as Lot 18, located at 1395 Old Rosebud Trail, identified by TMS number 615-0000149, and depicted on a plat recorded by the Charleston County RMC office in Book EG, page 978.
Item number 3 is the final reading on another annexation in Pepper Plantation.
Move for approval.
Second.
A motion and a second. Any questions or comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And the ayes have it.
Final reading, ordinance number 16060, an ordinance to zone PDCD Plan Development Conservation Design District in approximately 3.41 acre tract of vacant land known as Lot 18, located at 1395 Old Rosebud Trail, identified by TMS number 615-0000149, and depicted on a plat recorded by the Charleston County RMC office in Plat Book EG, page 978.
Item number 4 is another annexation. Final reading.
Move for approval of
Second.
4 and 5 and rezone.
Second.
Thank you. I have a motion to approve item 4 and 5. Any comments or questions on that? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? And the ayes have it.
Final reading, ordinance number 16061, an ordinance providing for the annexation of approximately 1.42 acre tract of vacant land comprised of 2 parcels located at 1117 Highway 41 and Gregory Ferry Road, identified by TMS numbers 58000000028, 580000060, and depicted on a plat recorded by the Charleston County RMC office in Book DF, page 280. Final reading, ordinance number 16062, an ordinance to zone AB, area-wide business district, in approximately 1.42 acre tract of vacant land comprised of 2 parcels located at 1117 Highway 41 and Gregory Ferry Road, identified by TMS numbers 58000000028 and 58000000060, and depicted on a plat recorded by the Charleston County RMC office in Book DF, page 280.
Thank you. Item number 6 is another annexation. Coles Bay.
Move for approval.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Final reading, ordinance number 16065, an ordinance providing for the annexation of approximately 1.07 acre tract of land located at 4317 Caledonia Lane in Rice Fields at Bowles Bay, identified by TMS number 63200000105, and depicted as lot 42 in the plat recorded by the Charleston County MC office and plat book EG, page 111.
Thank you. Items number 7 and 8,
Move
both.
for approval 7 and 8.
Second.
A motion to approve on 7 and 8. Any comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Final reading, ordinance number 16066, an ordinance to amend PD Plan Development District zoning ordinances number 07047 and 12087 pertaining to Lake Park Church property, providing for the installation of a force main sewer line, natural roadside buffer yard, and mitigation for the same. Final reading, ordinance number 16067, an ordinance to amend PD Plan Development District zoning ordinances 04014-09033 pertaining to property known as the Market at Oakland, providing for the installation of a force main sewer line and natural roadside buffer yard, and mitigation for the same.
If you don't have an action item on your committee, I would suggest that you just turn it to the clerk, please, due to the length of the meeting tonight. So if you have a report, could you please just turn it in unless there's an action item? I see the first action item here on the planning committee. Mr. Brimmer?
I do.
Oh, you have an action item, sorry.
Yeah, these are funding recommendations that council
I
needs to.
apologize, I missed it right there. Accommodations tax.
This is Accommodations Tax Advisory Committee. We do have awards to various entities that council needs to affirm. I will say, as I read them off, that Accommodation Tax Advisory Board Committee is kind of changing their way a little bit in that they're including some non-heads and beds events. And there's one in particular on this funding to the South Coast Symphony Orchestra for $2,000 that does not really have any heads and beds involved, but it is a community arts program that the committee is trying to entertain more of. So this is the first time you'll see something like this. But let me read the recommendations from the committee as to funding, and you can affirm or discuss after I read them. Wando Invitational Volleyball Tournament is $1,500. Low Country Invitational Marching Band Festival is $2,000. Charleston Select Men's Shootout is $1,000. Cooper River Bridge Run is $15,000. Festival of Houses and Gardens is $750. Low Country Oyster Festival is $7,500. South Coast Symphony Orchestra is $2,000. And Dunlop Junior Tennis Tournament is $2,000, for a total of $31,750.
And how much does that leave in the balance?
That leaves us $197,000.
Well, Mr. Carrier, I want to thank you for all your hard work and extra work on this. I do have some concerns about the ATAC money being used. I did read the minutes of that meeting. Thank you, Councilman Nichols, for being here with us today. Y'all give a little shout out. My concerns are state statute. I want to make sure accommodations tax is specifically designed for promotion of the businesses that collect that accommodations tax and putting heads in beds for the wonderful people who collected in the hospitality and restaurant industry. So I have some concerns until I hear about the state statute. Mr. Pagliarini.
I think Ashley was giving advice on that, so if you want to chime in, Ashley, on that.
Yes, sir. The state statute does have a preference to organizations that are bringing in visitors, that so-called heads and beds. However, they do have a qualification for cultural events. It's almost an art for art's sake, so bringing people to the area because the economic impact will come from going out to dinner or going shopping. So there are some exceptions.
Thank you, Ms. Richardson. Like I said, I still have, I certainly support the arts. I just don't know, I mean, you certainly can vote on this, but I would be cautious. I have a family that collects those taxes, sometimes begrudgingly, and, you know, they should maybe have a say in this, so I don't know that I wouldn't like to get more information from the hospitality industry before I'm willing to vote on the extra $2,000. I don't know how the council feels. Any comments?
Only that the board did really talk about it, and they are leaning into the direction of looking at more of the arts in our community as far as a support for us as a support. So Ashley assured us that we were in firm ground. I mean, I don't have a vote on this, but I'm bringing it back to you all because it is a change in direction.
I read the minutes with interest, and they might change the way they vote, the time period that they vote on, so I do understand there's some changes coming with the accommodations tax. But if y'all are prepared to vote on it, that's fine with me. All in favor of the accommodations tax recommendations as stated? Oh, we didn't have a second, I apologize.
Second.
Now we have a second. Any other questions about this before we vote on it? All in favor of the recommendations as stated?
Aye.
And I'm gonna be opposed until I get some more information from the hospitality industry and know those statutes a little bit better. So not that I'm against the arts, I just want a better understanding of how the tax is collected.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just want to go on the record for, under the Finance Committee, Chairman Elton had directed an attendee of that meeting to send an email in to staff, and I just want to make sure, I've spoke to Marcy already before tonight's mail. She's has already received that email, and I just want to make sure that we respond in an appropriate time manner. There's some time-sensitive nature to that, those follow-up questions regarding the presentation for the consultant as it relates to property and casualty insurance and workman's comp. So just want to make sure that we follow through on the notes as said. Since I didn't hear the report, Mr. Carey, I'm sure.
Are you talking about
it's
the
in there.
dissenter or the dissenter? That's a bad word. I mean, are you talking about?
Consultant report, there was some questions that came from the floor that you had directed
Yes.
to be emailed in, and
That
she's
were,
acknowledged
staff
that
was
she
gonna,
got those.
staff was gonna discuss with him
Yes, sir.
afterwards. Did that happen, Eric?
We have received his letter with questions, and we will prepare a response.
Okay,
Very good.
thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
That's it.
Planning committee, Mr. Brimmer?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just want to start off by saying that as you look at the agenda for this evening's meeting, you can tell that this month was very, very heavy for the Planning Committee, and I just want to say thank you to the committee members for taking time out to do 2 meetings this month instead of 1. And also thank you to the staff for preparing voluminous documents for us to be prepared. So thank you so much for your hard work on that. Have 2 action items this month. First is an approval to draft zoning and land use development amendments and to restrict residential subdivision of property and the construction of all accessory dwelling units in the area bound by Coleman and Ben Sawyer Boulevards and the Charleston Harbor until the drainage study is completed. Following a review and discussion of subdivision information in the old Mount Pleasant area, the Planning Committee recommended a restriction on approvals for subdivision of property and construction of ADUs until the drainage infrastructure study has been completed for the defined area. This was a 3-to-1 vote for approval.
And is that a motion?
That's the motion from the committee, yes.
And I'll second that.
Thank you, Mr. Brimmer, and I have a second from Mr. Bustos. I again would like to add a few comments here. I certainly have done a lot of homework on this, and I live in that area. I know the flooding is an issue. My garage does flood, but not until we get 5 or 6 inches, fortunately. And I'm very, very willing to support a motion to quit the subdivision of lots until we get the study in. But I'm not really ready to talk about ADUs in this motion. And the reason I say that is the subdivision of lots tied to drainage makes sense to me. I think that it's very easy for us to calculate a number. So what I anticipate after the information that Mr. Peel gave me is we're gonna look at about $100,000 for the study. We're gonna come up with a number of approximately $20 million to do the work. And the assessment per home, if you looked at it per home, would be approximately $9,600 to $10,000 per lot. So I think there's a logical end to this. If this happens over a 10-year period and we don't know how to fund the $20 million drainage study, there are about 20 lots that are eligible right now that can be subdivided. Without a waiver. Mr. Barnes, I see you shaking your head. So I saw the same data that you did. So what I would suggest is I would certainly support no more subdivisions of property till the study's done, until we have some solution to drainage issues in that area. As we have done in many areas of town, we've spent millions of dollars on drainage that isn't really our responsibility. The problem I have with ADUs is it's a more comprehensive problem. It's a bigger problem. This is not an Old Village problem. I hear people who like ADUs, I hear people who don't like ADUs. I personally would like this council to do the hard work and determine if we even want them, or determine if they should only be on R1, or determine if they are too tall, or they shouldn't be on R4. I think we're kind of picking around at the issue, and I just don't think it's fair. I agree with Ms. Smith's comments earlier. Why are we isolating the Old Village? This is a town issue. Let's address it as a town. So I certainly could support the motion if we could exclude the ADUs. There will be no pending ordinance on this, so it would be November before we could address ADUs anyway. The Affordable Task Force has been asked to give their report, and I don't think we have the staff member here that's working on that, but that's forthcoming. And the ADUs came out of the first task force. So I would like to have someone on council, I've talked to Mr. Owens about it, he's in agreement with me that this is a big comprehensive issue and that we need to review it as a community. So I can support the motion, but only if we can exclude the two. If not, I will be voting against it.
Madam Mayor, I think the motion probably stands the way it was read, and I agree with you. I think these are big questions. You apparently have information that has not been made available to me anyway. I don't know what the rest of you. So I think, these questions you're talking about need long-term solutions. They need comprehensive solutions, and I think the point of the motion in the Planning Committee was until we can get closer to those discussions, it probably, and based on the experience we had in Public Services Committee, we talked about those neighbors and just having a huge problem there with no resolution in sight. I do think putting the brakes on here and taking a comprehensive look at where the money's going to come from, what's the scope of the problem, and all the contributing factors. I think that was the rationale behind the motion that was brought from the Planning Committee was we need to take a bigger look at this. And you're absolutely right. This is not something that can just be discussed and voted on. It needs more study. But I would love to have the information from Jody that you mentioned as well, so I can take a look at that. And perhaps have Public Services Committee have a public discussion on that as well.
Thank you, Mr. Bremer. Mr. Bustos?
Yes, and I was the one in the planning committee that brought this up. We have parts of the old part of Mount Pleasant that they don't have drainage. There just is no drainage because the streets were built by the state. In the newer parts of Mount Pleasant, we don't approve any neighborhoods that have substandard drainage. We just don't do it. In the newer parts of Mount Pleasant with the HOAs, most don't allow ADUs. So these problems are really compressed into the old part of Mount Pleasant, partially because there are no HOAs. The combination of ADUs, the increased density, more driveways, more impervious surface, coupled with the lack of drainage is becoming problematic. And if you own the lowest lot on a lot of streets in Mount Pleasant, you get all the water from up and down the street. Now, this isn't something that is a moratorium. We're saying let's take a step back until we can look at this and see what can be done about drainage, have that comprehensive study, and then we'll see what we can accommodate, both in ADUs and in building the drainage. And this is something that will not be fixed quickly. But in other parts of Mount Pleasant, with regard to ADUs, when new proposals come in, we can disapprove them. As a matter of fact, we have disapproved ADUs in some new submittals. And the HOAs, for the most part, I haven't heard of one that really embraces ADUs. So other parts of Mount Pleasant are fine. And this is a localized problem that we're taking a localized approach to. And I think it's a smart thing to do, because we have to get to the point where we can provide a basic town service of drainage, or at least understand that we're not doing it, what we have to do to get there. So I think this is it's a measured approach. We're not using a meat cleaver and everything. It's very measured. And the other parts of Mount Pleasant, as I said, they're pretty much taken care of now with regards to that.
Thank you, Joe. I just want to point out, and I'm sorry Jody didn't, I'm sorry I didn't ask Jody to share the information. Ion certainly embraces them. Ripley's Point, Hamlet Square, Bayview, Groves, Cooper's Landing, Wando East, Walkendall, Rosemead, Mallard Lake, Green Hill, Whitehall. Those are all neighborhoods that face the same issues.
Well, and perhaps we need to expand this outside of just the Coleman Boulevard, Ben Sawyer Boulevard area. As I said, Old Mount Pleasant is not immune to that, and Old Mount Pleasant does include Remley's Point, Paulcott, and all those other areas. So, this may be timely, and it may be appropriate to expand that.
And that's why I would certainly ask us to take the planning committee to make some recommendations to take it back to planning commission, and let's address it. Let's deal with it. Let's not just stop it based on some random drainage study. But I'm not going to argue. It's not that big of an issue for me.
Yeah.
I just want to make my points clear.
Absolutely, and I would say we do this, and then now that this new information has come up, new areas, I'm sure Mr. Brimmer would welcome it coming back to planning committee, and we can expand on what we do here tonight.
Thank you very much. Mr. Owens?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Page. Just getting back to our discussion about this issue, I hope I made it clear that I didn't believe that compartmentalizing this would affect the drainage study. And so that, by compartmentalizing, I mean that there is certainly the ability to address other areas in town, and it can go back to the planning committee. But I don't know that the motion, I believe that the motion should pass as it stands. Doesn't mean that we can't go back and revisit other areas of Mount Pleasant regarding the ADUs. So this was just part of the discussion that was in the planning committee, and I'm going to continue to support the motion as it's read.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I understand that the village is important. I had Mr. Elton Carey first, and then I'll be glad to get back to you, Mr. Henry. Mr. Carey?
I'm not going to support it if it's not separated from ADUs. The ADU issue is not taken out. I mean, here we are again, we're talking about personal property rights. Here we got people who are building these things 850 square foot in the back of their houses for their children, or mainly for their parents, elderly parents, who can't afford the Frankie costs, who can't afford the Seaside costs, who can't afford the Sweetgrass costs, and this is their way of supporting their parents in their own properties. To me, we just don't belong there. This body does not belong in regulating ADUs. There's what, 26 of them in Old Mount Pleasant. 26. There's 157 of them in all of Mount Pleasant. We've got 37,000 residential units in Mount Pleasant. What kind of percentage is that? I mean, it's just an issue we don't need to be in. We already have tried to get in people's personal property rights, and we miserably failed. So this is just another attempt to do that, and I just don't see it. And I will not support it as long as the ADU issue is in there. I commend Councilman Bustos for bringing up the drainage in Old Mount Pleasant as far as what's needed there, desperately needed. We heard it at Public Works Committee, some of the situations over on Middle Street, and it is bad. So, and there's other areas over on Freeman Street and places like that. So that, I think, is desperately needed. But the ADU issue, it's like me bringing up the trying to get rid of the 50 to 54-year-olds at the senior center. You know, we just looked at it, and the numbers don't justify the action right now. So we're going to leave the 50s in there, you know. But I do think it's a problem ongoing. But this is another. I think when the numbers get up there, where we start seeing a lot of ADUs and not being used for the right purposes, then we need to address it. But right now, I can't support it. Thank you.
Mr. Haney?
Yes, ma'am. First, I'd like to speak as chairman of the Public Services Committee. And it's in our report, but in our meeting this month, we met in response to a letter signed by, Jody, what was it, 8 property owners or more than that?
Six property owners inspected.
Six property owners who are dealing with a drainage issue in this part of town. We're not picking favorites. We're responding to this because there, as Councilman Bustos said, there was no infrastructure built in there when this is the oldest part of town, or at least one of the oldest. And that's why we're responding to that. And I would ask you to consider, please, voting in favor of this, because not only do ADUs add impervious surface, they add it right up on your property line and sometimes change the direction in which that water is going. When somebody, I believe we changed it to 6 feet, is that in effect now? Did that go into effect? So when you've got a roof line that you can go up 25 feet, you got a roof line with a slope coming down to 6 feet from your property line, you've all of a sudden got water coming towards you where you didn't have it before we had ADUs, and ADUs are a relatively new thing. And Mayor Page, you and I had this conversation today, and I agree, we need to address this issue overall. But in this case, I'm just asking for your support because we have drainage issues in this part of town, and the ramification of being wrong is somebody's property gets flooded. That's not looking after people's property rights.
Thank you very much. I appreciate your comments. Any other comments? Mr.
Yes.
Garch?
Mr. Pagarini, this would take 2 readings, correct? If the vote is successful tonight, it'd need another reading?
I think there's some issues surrounding that probably shouldn't be discussed in public, but I'm trying to understand what the ultimate result is. Typically, our ordinances require 2 readings. Anything that's designated as an ordinance would, anything that's designated as a moratorium would.
Well, then you know what my follow-up question is, if this is successful tonight, and we're coming back next month, for folks that already have an application in, at what point does the line drop, does the hammer drop, say that's it? When are you in and when are you out?
Final reading.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Smith?
Madam Mayor, thank you. Eric, to you, our appropriate staff person, a lot of talk about property rights, and here tonight, if I wanted to improve my property in any manner, am I allowed? Is there any check and balance system that the town has that regulates and governs runoff for my improvements on my property that has to be dealt with, or is it just a free-for-all and I can dump runoff on my neighbor's property at will? Are there not any current ordinances that address runoff? That we've heard that several times tonight, and I just think maybe I had forgotten that we dealt with runoff from one property to the other, because as we all certainly agree, no one's property rights trumps the other. It's all equal.
Our laws, the laws of the town require each property owner to manage their own water.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other discussion? Call for the vote.
Mr. Brimmer?
Aye.
I'm sorry?
Aye.
Mr. Brimmer votes yes. Mr. Bustos?
Aye.
Mr. Bustos votes yes. Mr. Carrier?
Nay.
Mr. Carrier votes no. Mr. Garch?
Aye.
Mr. Garch votes yes. Mr. Haney?
Aye.
Mr. Haney votes yes. Mr. Owens?
Aye.
Mr. Owens votes yes. Mr. Santos?
Aye.
Mr. Santos votes yes. Mr. Smith?
Nay.
Mr. Smith votes no. Mayor Page?
No.
Mayor Page votes no. 6-3.
Thank you. We have a need to go back to the Finance Committee. Mr. Carrier, we have overlooked the setting of the millage rate, which is the best news of the night.
Mayor Page?
Okay, that's fine.
It's
Oh,
not
I didn't
in-
turn the page. I apologize. I just didn't want to miss finance.
It's not a new business. Okay, you want to go, you can go back and do it now?
Let's go ahead and, while we stay on this page, if you don't mind, we'll go back to finance. We do have one more issue under planning. I apologize, I did not turn the page.
Okay.
Yeah,
this
I'd
is-
like to address something in the fire committee, out of the fire committee as well.
Thank you very much.
We have one
Okay.
more
Yeah.
action item.
He's got one more.
I understand, and it was on the other page. I apologize. Would you mind if we take care of finance first, and then we'll finish yours out, and we'll go to the rest of the committee? Does that work? for you, Mr. Brewer. I appreciate it. Mr. Carrier?
Lots of flexibility.
All right, we have a motion out of finance that the committee unanimously approved the recommendation that town council set the millage rate to be sent to Charleston County at 38.1 mils for operating expenses and 2.9 mils for debt service, for a total of 41 mils, with a tax credit factor of 0.00035. Put that in the form of a motion.
I have a motion and a second with some wonderful news. No tax increases and the lowest taxes in the Tri-County area. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, and the ayes have it. Moving back to planning on the second page, item number, is the approval to proceed with drafting an ordinance regarding to freshwater wetlands and the calculation of open space.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yes, this is following a review and discussion of open space requirements for the development. The committee voted to recommend an amendment regarding open space requirements so that freshwater wetlands are not included in the calculation for meeting open space requirements, and that open space calculations are uniformly applied for all zoning. This was a 3-to-1 vote for approval.
Is that in the form of a motion?
Yes, ma'am.
Second it.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Good work there, Mr. Rimmer. And we'll go back to you now. With your fire committee, you had a comment, Mr. Owens?
Yes, ma'am. I just want to bring it to the attention of council that Chief Williams, Deputy Chief Weidenbrenner, Battalion Chief Oliverius, Captain Nixon appeared before the commission on Fire Accreditation International in San Antonio in August. The CFAI voted unanimously to accredit Mount Pleasant Fire Department for the 4th time. Mount Pleasant Fire Department was originally accredited in August 2001 and was the first fire department in the state of South Carolina to be accredited by the CFAI. It was also one of the first 53 agencies worldwide for this accreditation. Thank you.
Thank you for that report, Mr. Owens. And we know if we have 2 fires at the same time, that we're going to handle them all fine, and regardless of the height of the building, we're going to get them put out. That's all good news. Police, Legal, and Judicial Committee, Mr. Demore.
Yes, Mayor, thank you very much. As a recommendation from the committee to this body to approve the reappointment of municipal judges Stobbs, Michelle, and Hesse to another 2-year term.
Motion approved.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. And the ayes have it. We will do those swearing-ins next month. Mr.
May I, we have no action item. May I make a quick comment as public services?
I'm sorry, certainly.
Thank you.
Everybody give it
No motions or anything, but I just want to commend Jody Peel and his staff. We had a major weather event and a holiday, and everything's going to be on track in terms of the trash collection, being the vegetation and the limbs and stuff that were blown down. Garbage it's getting picked up, and that's on the after holiday schedule. But I haven't gotten any complaints. We had more damage on the south side of town than we did the northern side of town. I think that might have to do with the fetch of the wind and the way the storm came across and all that. But again, our great staff of this town handled this with great ease, and Jody, I report to me.
Thank you very much. Always got the best staff in town. Administrator's report, we have some vacancies.
That's correct, Mayor. A vacancy on the Accommodations Tax Advisory Committee, as well as a vacancy on the Planning Commission. That's all I have.
Great. Thank you very much for that. And we want to thank Josh Malone for his service to us, not only through the Planning Committee, but through the Planning Commission, but he was also on, not BOZA. BOZA, okay. We're sorry to lose him. Council new business, the first.
Mayor, Madam.
Yes.
Madam Mayor.
Yes, Mayor ma'am.
We also have one on the Historical Commission as well, is that correct?
We have 2, accommodations tax, and we had an opening on the historical committee, but we have applicants tonight. We have 4 to choose from.
Thank you.
And we only had 1 vacancy, so we will be filling that
These are
tonight.
postal, I'm sorry, these are new ones that are being announced.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes. Are you good?
Fine.
All right, good, glad to hear it. Under council new business, we have a first reading of an ordinance to transfer the title of some right-of-way that we wouldn't like to keep. Mr. Moore, you want to help us with that? Anyone need to explain it?
Well, it'd be good. Mr. Pagliarini and his team have done tremendous work and something very important. I'll let him describe it.
Very important.
This project was done through money from the State Infrastructure Bank, and when you do that, there is an IGA or an intergovernmental agreement, and one of the tenets of that or requirements is when we have excess right-of-way or surplus right-of-way, it should go back to the DOT. So what we've done is identify the properties will request the DOT, they have an opportunity to take it into their system. From what I understand, that could take quite a while, but we need to get the ordinance in order to have authorization to deed out property. So we don't know exactly that's gonna happen yet.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to follow through with the IGA. Any other conversations, questions, Mr. Taglerini? All in favor? Aye. Opposed, and the ayes have it.
First reading ordinance number 16086, an ordinance authorizing the transfer of title to surplus right-of-way to the South Carolina Department of Transportation related to the US Highway 17 Mark Clark Expressway project.
Great. Under old business, there is no old business. We do have need to go into executive session to review some proprietary information on a company relative to an economic development grant. We also will be receiving some legal advice on Phipps versus Town of Mount Pleasant lawsuit. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
I have a motion and a second. Any other comments, all in favor? If you can take a break, try to keep it as short as possible, folks, because everybody can get finished up. And I'll be taking a break as well, so I'll keep it as short as possible.
Amy, if you want to handle it, go ahead. I was going to handle it, so late.
I never saw you there.
I got home.
I thought it was Cracker Jack. I mean, I felt stupid because I'm trying to read.
Hey, you said my motion is all of the above. That's what you. Hey, my motion is all of the above. That's blended.
If you look at the general ordinance that I read the first time, it is exactly like this committee except for the.
You want to do it? Sure. Good night, everybody.
I know you're not gonna let me live that one.
Hillary, get ready for rain.
Yes, we are on high alert.
On shore.
Extreme rain, subtropical, some tropical. Yay!
Could be a cooler.